Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Oh, I have no idea how to do the intro here. It's kind of a kick in the you know what Friday. Wherever I'm in from, radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM, also online, sportstalk1051.com. Got your Google and Alexa home devices. The app video stream also up and rolling on YouTube and Facebook here this morning. But yeah, what a I don't even know what to say from last night. But what a crappy, poopy, disappointing ending from the Brewers game last night. As I'm sure you all are well aware of what happens, but Brewers had the lead heading into the ninth, 2-run lead, 2-0. Mets only had a couple hits, both from Lindor and Devin Williams on the mounds. Brewers lose. Mets end up scoring 4 in the the top of the ninth. Pete Alonso with a 3-run shot off of Devin Williams, and Brewers not able to put up any runs in the bottom of the ninth. So season is officially over with for the Brewers. It's done just like that. It's one of the downers about sports and that too is like especially when you don't know when your season's over with, and then it's that day, that night, or whatever, and it's just like, yep, you're completely done. Kind of like that's a hard end right there. So, but now we've got a off season full of questions. Obviously, the biggest one out there is Devin Williams, which I think a lot of us and a lot of people out there just assumed that was probably the last time we saw Devin Williams in a Brewers uniform last night. We'll see about maybe some other players and such, but I know it's still kind of raw. I know it's still kind of, it still doesn't feel great. But when you look back at this season, try your best to maybe not let the emotions kind of kick through here, but what when you think back to 2024, what will kind of stand out to you the most? Probably Jackson Cheerio, right? Probably the youngsters in that, but it's back to the question: how do you assess this season? When depending on what were your preseason expectations for this team, and did they live up to it? Did they uh, pass it? Did they maybe underperform if you had really high expectations? But when you think about this season and you look back to what your expectations were at the preseason, how did it kind of live up? And I'm a big believer expectations can change throughout the course of the season. So if you had lower expectations, but your team was exceeding that, you can change your expectations there. For one, I didn't think they were going to make the postseason in our preseason predictions. I didn't think that was going to be the case. They exceeded that, no question about it. But as soon as, kind of halfway through the season when they've been in first place forever, your expectations kind of change. Like, okay, competing for those top two spots, I wanna win. I wanna make a run in this postseason, not just be happy to be there, but I wanna make a run. So it's almost like we have, I don't know, maybe kind of two different assessments when it comes to this. When it comes to this Brewer season, it's like, at least for me, on one hand, they exceeded what I had thought they were gonna do before the season had started. But then on the other hand, it's like, it'd be nice to to win a postseason series for the first time since 2018. But nonetheless, it is what it is at this point. But I want to hear from you, Brewers fans. All right, if you got to get a little something off your chest, well, go ahead and do that if you'd like. Hit us up with a text 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line or video stream or social media and such. We'll talk to our good buddy Brandon, who was actually at the game last night. So he was texting me a little bit last night after the game, and yeah, he wasn't too happy, a little down. He was a little down. So we'll see how he's feeling. Probably not on a whole bunch of sleep either here. So, but Pat Murphy talked a little bit to the media. Devin Williams chatted with the media. He completely blames himself. It's all on him, he feels like. His teammates tried doing his best to console him and say it wasn't. Even Bob Uecker apparently was in the locker room trying to console him and some of the players after the game last night. But that's got to be one of the most loneliest feelings in the world for a guy like Devin Williams when that ending happens, when you're in your home building and you're just a couple outs away from advancing to the next round of the postseason after your teammates, after fantastic performances from Tobias Myers, fantastic from Trevor McGill, fantastic from Mears, fantastic from Freddie Peralta. The pitching was on last night for the Brewers, except the ninth. And that has just got to be the crappiest, one of the most loneliest, empty feelings somebody could have sitting in a locker room like Devin Williams or during that game and sitting in the dugout. I'm sure some of us have gone through, losses in a game or something like that where you felt like it was your fault or you were a big reason for that, but on that stage and in that moment, I don't envy Devin for having to kind of think about that and go through that too. But man, that's got to be a horrible feeling right there. So, but again, how do you assess? How would you look back at this season? I know it's not even 24 hours, but we'll try our best, and maybe some of that will be a little bit emotional over there too. So, but we'll talk some Brewers baseball and such throughout the morning. It is a TGIFF. Thank gosh it's a football Friday. So we've got Packers Rams kicking off Sunday 3:25. 3:25. Packers practice yesterday. Jordan Love was a full participant for the first time, listed as a full participant for the first time since you got to go before their week 1 game. So nice nod in the direction there. Jair returned to practice in a limited fashion. Kenny Clark was out there. Edgerrin Cooper did not practice. Romeo did not practice. Matt LaFleur saying it was a personal matter. Not quite sure what's going on. He said, the hope is that he would be able to go on Sunday. But Elton Jenkins back at practice too. But the big one was Jordan Love being elevated to a full participant at practice. Jeff Hafley, a lot of the coordinators also talked to the media yesterday. Excuse me. And Hafley was asked about Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, two players that we've talked about, especially a lot this week in the last couple of weeks, about their level of play and what they have kind of done so far, or maybe not done in the first quarter of the season. And this is kind of, I knew Kenny Clark did have a sack, but he doesn't have a tackle for loss. He's not credited for a tackle for loss, which is kind of shocking to me at that point. But Jeff Hafley said about Kenny Clark, I think Kenny's done a good job. I think he's one of the best interior D linemen in the NFL. And as this thing shakes out, everybody's going to continue to see that. In terms of Rashawn Gary, Jeff Hafley had to say that, we need to get more out of him, but he needs to get more out of me as well. So kind of, essentially saying, yep, he's got to get better, but I also have to be better for him too. So, But what are your key matchups? What are your keys to victory in this game going up against a desperate Rams team in their house, going to the West Coast, right? What's your keys to victory, your key matchups in this thing, and your predictions? And your predictions. So you can let us know on that. We'll talk some college football coming up here as well. Chez Mellusi for the Badgers stepping away from the team. Now he's not necessarily like leaving the team. He's not leaving the program, but he's stepping away to heal from injuries. Now we know Chez Mellusi has been, banged up over the years. But apparently now he's stepping away. No timetable on a potential return from Mellusi, but he's stepping away to kind of heal. In a statement, it says we want to let people know that Chez is going to be stepping away from the team for now and working to get his body healthy. According to the team statement, he's endured many injuries and has worked extremely hard to be able to play this year, but his body hasn't responded the way he expected. We're here to support Chez in any way we can and hope he'll be back on the football field again one day. So, Badgers losing their veteran running back for the immediate and for the foreseeable future. But Badgers taking on Purdue this weekend. Remember, Purdue's got a new, should be tomorrow, new offensive coordinator after firing former Packers backup quarterback Graham Harrell earlier in the week. So we'll see if Purdue is able to do something different and maybe catch the Badgers defense on their heels, catch them a little bit off guard in that. Or we'll see if the Badgers can bounce back after dropping their last two games and picking up a conference win against Purdue. So we'll talk some college football. A little local sports roundup with Brandon too, as we're starting to get close to some high school football playoffs. We've got soccer, volleyball, cross country, golf. I know we're postseason play for golf too, for girls golf. So we'll catch up on everything with Brandon coming up a little bit later on this morning. We'll catch up with Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for a little inside the training room as well. That'll be coming up in less than an hour, just past 7 o'clock. So, but let's get things going here. Lead it off talking some Brewers. Kind of keep that wound open for just a little bit. I know it hasn't been 24 hours yet, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what words I would use to describe the feeling from last night that wouldn't get me in trouble. Words I probably can't say. Well, I know I can't say. But when you look back at your preseason predictions or expectations from this team and to see where it finished up, kind of a two-part question. Did it exceed it for you in that sense of what you had expected at the beginning of the year? And how do you like it's going to be that question that everybody's going to ask. Do you view it as a successful season, which is going to be talked about, it's going to be asked, it's going to be thrown out there. Everybody's going to have different answers or perspectives on it. So, I mean, I might as well be one of the first ones to ask you what how do you assess this season? How do you assess the season overall? Brewers wise. I mean, we can do individual players and such, but from a team aspect, how do you assess how the season went in the overall part of it? Okay, hit me up with some text or comment on the video stream and hit me up with the socials and such. So let's get things rocking and rolling this morning, shall we? We'll keep the wound open for a little bit yet this morning. We'll talk some Brewers, then we'll get to some key matchups, key victories too. The Packers and Rams coming up as well. First break, lead off coming up after these words. Best of luck to all of our youth hunters who will be heading out to the woods this weekend. Be safe, have fun. Don't forget to upload those photos to the Tilden Gun photo gallery that we have up on our website, sportstalk1051.com, outdoors tab. And also, don't forget, upload it for our checklist, our quest to determine who is the ultimate Wisconsin outdoorsman, youth and adult divisions over there. More details and that complete checklist over there on our website on the outdoors tab. And if this weekend too is maybe kind of getting you in the mood, or maybe making you realize, hey, I got to get a new deer rifle before next month's season, head on over to our good friends over at Tilden Gun. You can also check out their website, tildengun.com, for the biggest and best selections out there. G-Man saying, I will always root for the Brewers. Not in the mood for uh, not in the mood for a victory on breakfast. I get you, bud. PS Pack will win 27-17 against LA on Sunday. The crew will be there at the end of next year because we still have a very young team. Brewers fans, just watch us win. Go Brewers, G-Man. Texter, don't have a name, but Texter chiming in saying, I have some empathy for how Devin must feel, but at the end of the game, I really like how Freddie stepped up. Coming off of a game one, being let down, getting removed. Mears, another veteran that stepped up. Where was Hoskins? How does Devin not step up on the mound ready to win? He sucked. It wasn't a bad at bat. He just sucked. But as a whole, absolutely successful season. Please pay Willie. He is great for the team. Thank you for your time. I mean, last night you got to give a credit to Tobias Myers. I mean, he was lights out, or for a rookie making his first career postseason start in a win or go home scenario. I got to imagine the adrenaline was just pumping through his veins, but also nerves, maybe a little butterflies, especially at the beginning. And then, Lindor leads it off with a double, and it's like, oh, does it start to get? But he bounced back, and Tobias, I mean, we like to tip our cap to, giving shout outs and such. But I got to tip my cap to Tobias Myers, because the kid, I mean, you look back on this season, and a lot of it is going to be remembered, I think, from excuse me, the youngster stepping up. And Tobias Myers is one of those guys. And he had a fantastic outing last night. And I think we were all kind of, once he got pulled, even though he was still pitching very well, it was going to be that third time through the rotation. We talked about it yesterday. What was going to be the plan? Because it sure seemed like the first two games, it was a plan. We're not going to let our starters see a lineup, or let that lineup see them for a third time. And the Brewers stayed true to that. But Trevor McGill comes in, shuts it down. Nick Mears comes in, shuts it down. Freddie Peralta comes in relief, shuts it down. Through 8 innings, the Brewers pitchers were fantastic. They rose to the challenge. They in that tight, close game, they were holding it down, and they were fantastic up until the ninth, when Devin came in. And up at that point too, the Brewers did not issue a walk. They didn't issue a walk until Lindor against Devin Williams, and that's kind of when it came tumbling down a little bit there. Devin was able to pick up the out after that, but and so might as well tell you, my kid's a huge Brewers fan, and obviously the game was up late, and he's trying to go to bed and such. And once Devin got the first out, I ran to his bedroom, and I'm like, Hudson, let's go watch the final 2 outs. And then it ended that way, and he was just in a really bad mood after that. So I feel bad as a dad getting him up and be like, hey, let's watch the final 2 outs so he could see the team actually celebrating that. And I thought we were going to get it. I thought we was going to be done. And boy, that turned on its heels in a big moment. So probably bad dad parenting right there. But I agree with with our texter a little bit earlier. You have empathy for how Devin must feel, but at the same time too, you've at that moment, at that spot, you got to perform. That's your job in that moment. That's your job as the closer, one of the best in baseball. You gotta get that job done. And Devin didn't do it. I mean, this team, last night too, Bowers comes in pinch hit. And you're right. I mean, I was waiting for these veterans to step it up and, kind of fill it in, and they were pretty quiet, especially Rhys Hoskins. Especially Rhys Hoskins. I mean, this was a series again with the youngsters. Yes, Bowers. And I don't know if I'd consider Bowers a youngster. He's been around in the league for a while, but he gets that home run. But then Sal Frelick, this kid who wasn't even supposed to play in this series with that hip injury. I mean, that was kind of the narrative heading into this. This was a talk that he wasn't going to play because the hip wasn't going to be able. That hip injury wasn't going to allow him to. He gets a Monday workout in, and he makes the roster, and he makes every single start. And he jacks his first home run, his hardest hit, his longest home run of his career, but his first home run since May. And it's just, it stinks, with all that emotion. And again, we're going to talk to Brandon, who was there, and I can imagine what that stadium, what American Family Field was like right after that Pete Alonso home run. I can't. But when you look back at this season, how do you view it? I mean, how do you assess it? And maybe again, it's two part. Maybe it's on one hand, it's like I didn't have a lot of expectations at the beginning of the season. I didn't think they were going to make it. The fact that they did, successful season. You see Jackson Chourio, you can pinpoint, different parts of this team and be like, okay, Jackson's exceeded my expectations. I had no idea who Tobias Myers was, and by far that exceeded my expect. You could go down the list. Bryce Terang with a nice, bounce back offensive season after last year. We knew about his defense, but the question was heading into this year was his offensive play. He had a nice bounce back year there. Or maybe you're still view it as they didn't win a playoff series. It's a disappointment. I think failure in this part might be just a little bit of a strong word. A little bit too strong of a word there, but I mean, what do you all feel like? I was my preseason prediction. I didn't have them making the postseason. I had Willy Adames being traded by the deadline. I wasn't. Just because I was going into the season not knowing what to expect. I didn't know a whole lot of what to expect from the pitching staff. I didn't really have any high expectations for Jackson Chourio this year. Again, with Bryce Terang's offense, didn't know. Would some of these guys like a Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick take another step in their second years? It was very similar to the Packers from last year. So in that aspect, yeah, it easily went past my expectations. 100%. But expectations could change. Goals could change throughout a season. And once we saw how, they were consistently in first place, holding down first place, the cream of the crop of their division, it changed. It absolutely changed. So, but how you feeling? You can kind of get something off your chest if you like Jeremy saying the season can be summed up by disappointment. Maybe it's because I drank the Kool-Aid. Drank the Kool-Aid. Is there excitement for next year? Yes, but getting the playoffs is not enough anymore. And that's kind of I think the mindset of a lot of Brewers fans. It's changed over the years. It's not just getting to the postseason anymore. It's winning games in the postseason. It's winning a series, winning a couple series, getting to the World Series. That's kind of the expectation that Brewers fans have now. Was it a little bit different this year because of the unknownness of the team? I think so. But at the same time, some people say they were playing with house money. And whatever, came of it, that was just a bonus in that. But again, I'm a believer that I think your goals and expectations can change throughout a season. And seeing how well they played throughout this year, those changed a little bit to where, yeah, I wanted them to win a postseason series and make a run in the postseason and make a deep run into the postseason. And that didn't happen. And at that point, it's a disappointment. I think it could be a little bit both, to be honest with you. It could be it surpassed my preseason expectations, but I'm disappointed in the end result because they were better than I thought they were going to be. And it was a short-lived postseason. It's going to be a lot of memories. I mean, I think a lot of us, again, what will you remember the most about this season? I'm sure some of you are probably going to remember you're going to probably say the short postseason run, but at the same time, it's Jackson Cheerio season. It's how the young guns, the young players, really stepped up. I look at what some of these kids, what some of these guys did in these 3 games in the postseason. I mean, they kinda carried the team because we didn't get practically anything from Rhys Hoskins. Willy Adames, probably not at that level that we wanted or expected from the offensive side. Contreras apparently was a little bit banged up. Did that affect his offensive play? But tip your cap to Bryce Turang. I know he just hit list last night, but his first couple games, 5 of 8. Sal Frelick with that home run. We know Jackson. Garrett Mitchell. Tip your cap to how the youngsters perform. A couple more texts here quickly. One texter, Ben, saying, "I definitely look at this season as a success. I didn't have any expectations heading into it. Didn't think they were going to be in the postseason. Thought it was going to be up and down all over the place. The fact that they had over 90 wins, won the division again, is fantastic. Definitely a disappointing feeling after the postseason play, but overall, a very memorable season." Another texter here, Eric, saying disappointed in the end result, but at the same time, when you look at how the season transpired, a lot of positives to take away from it. So it's about 50-50 for me. Another texter saying, no way was this a disappointment or a failure of a season for me. Sucks how the game ended and how this series ended, but a lot more positives from this season than there were negatives from this season. Another texter coming in here saying that what I will remember the most is, of course, Jackson Cheerio, but also Pat Murphy, how he changed this team and how he changed their tendencies from just a year ago is pretty remarkable, and I'm excited to see the Pat Murphy era continue for the Brewers for the next couple of years. All right, keep those coming. All right, how would you assess the season? How when you look back at it, what kind of stands out to you the most there? Well, what do you got for me? All right, text me 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line. May not want to talk about it for the Brewers, but it's good to get it out in the open a little bit. It's good to get it out in the open. So. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll get back to some more of your comments and such. We'll throw a little green and gold chat in here just to mix it up here. More Brewers talk, though, coming up in the next hour when we got our man Brandon Berg in studio with us. Coming up next hour, just past 7 o'clock, we'll catch up with the good doc, Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Get his inputs, insights on some of the I've got to ask him about Christian McCaffrey and such over there too. But we'll catch up with Dr. Crowe here in about 20 minutes or so. Then after that, we'll chat more Brewers with our buddy Brandon Berg. I was at the game last night too, so we'll get his thoughts and feelings and such. You can continue to text us. How do you view this? Yeah, I know it's still kind of raw and such, but how do you view this season? Looking kind of looking back at it and such, and if you want to vent, if you want to get a little something off your chest from the game last night, you can do that too. All right, hit us up with a quick message. Switching gears here for just a little bit. Packers taking on the Rams this Sunday. Jordan Love, for the first time since before the Eagles game, a full participant at practice. Jair Alexander also returned to practice yesterday. So we will see if he actually gives it a go this weekend when we know Cooper Kupp and Puka is going to be playing. So could they elect to sit him down for another week, or will he get out there? I know they will say they don't do this, but when you look at coming up after this, you've got Arizona and Houston. Arizona, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. over there. Houston, you got Diggs, you got Nico Collins and such. Could they maybe want to elect to sit down Jair for another week to make sure he's ready to go for those? We'll see. But leading into this game, kind of a little scouting report, if you will, on both of these ball clubs. First, before that, we had the coordinators talking to the media yesterday too. And I think one of the big ones out here, we're still kind of new with him, obviously with him being in his first year and such. But Jeff Hafley, Packers defensive coordinator, answering questions from the media and such. And two players that we have talked quite a bit about, especially this week in the last couple of weeks, kind of questioned where their play's been. It's been Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark. Jeff Hafley said on Kenny Clark, I think Kenny has done a good job. I think he's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And as this thing shakes out, everybody's going to continue to see that. With Rashawn Gary, he said, we need to get more out of him, and he needs to get more out of me. So a couple comments on those two players. And that's definitely something that I think a lot of us want to see an improvement from in the second quarter of the regular season, which kicks off this weekend. We want to see a better performance, an upgrade in performance from Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary. When we look at some of the numbers here in terms of where these teams rank, Green Bay, the third-ranked offense in the NFL in terms of yards per game. The only two teams higher than them right now is Baltimore and San Francisco. Green Bay averaging about 410 yards per game offensively. The Rams are outside the top half of the league. They're about 312 and a half yards per game. Again, you're missing a couple of big-time weapons in Cooper and Puka. That's going to affect your numbers there. But in terms of passing yards, Green Bay and the Rams are back-to-back. Green Bay is averaging 235 yards through the air. In fact, there's no team right now, by the way, no team in the NFL that's averaging over 300 yards passing. If you'd have said the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith are averaging the most, have the highest amount of passing yards per game, go buy a lottery ticket, because that's the number one team in terms of passing yards per game right now, 280.8. Then you got San Francisco after that, Atlanta. But Green Bay and the Rams, top 10 teams in terms of passing. Now, rushing yards per game, Green Bay is number 2 in the league behind Baltimore. The Rams are a bottom 5 team in terms of rushing yards per game. Rams averaging 88.3, Green Bay 174.5. In terms of points per game, Green Bay is a top 10 team in points per game. When you look at the Rams, bottom third. Rams are averaging about 18.8 points per game. Green Bay, 26. Now, defensively, when we look at this, defensively, Green Bay is about middle of the pack in terms of a little outside halfway in terms of yards allowed per game. They're allowing 339.8 yards per game. But the Rams are the second worst team in the league in terms of giving up yards per game. 385.3 yards per game. So they're giving up quite a bit. In terms of passing, if we want to break it down here a little bit more, the Rams are giving up 219.8 yards through the air, which Green Bay is actually allowing more. Green Bay is allowing 230.5 yards through the air. But the Rams are dead last in the NFL in stopping the run. 165.5 yards allowed on the ground. The team that is closest to them, the second worst team, is a team that Green Bay ran all over on, the Colts. So the Colts are giving up 164.8 yards per game on the ground. The Rams, 165.5. So if we do that, you look at where those numbers are, you'd be like, ooh, Josh Jacobs game today or on Sunday. That's what things should tell us, right? If the Rams are really struggling at stopping the run, should be a Josh Jacobs game. Feed the rock to Josh Jacobs. That's what that would tell me. And when you kind of look at the Rams games, and their 4 games, a loss against the Lions, a loss against the Cardinals, a win against the Niners, and a loss against the Bears. Last week, if we go back to that first game of the season, the Lions game, David Montgomery had 91 yards on the ground on 17 carries. Jahmyr Gibbs contributed 11 carries for 40. If we go to the Cardinals game, James Conner had 21 carries for $122, 5.8 average. If we go to the Niners game, the lone win for the Rams, Jordan Mason, 19 carries, 77 yards. Brock Purdy actually had 10 carries for 41 yards. Go back to that Cardinals game, Kyler Murray had 5 carries for 59 yards. And then last week with the Bears, DeAndre Swift, 16 carries, 93 yards. So when you look at the top running backs, opponents-wise, going up against the Rams, Montgomery averaged 5.4. James Conner, 5.8. Jordan Mason, 4.1. DeAndre Swift, 5.8. I mean, that screams, let's focus on running the football. Let's get Josh Jacobs, a guy that I think if you asked, Packers fans a lot from last week against Minnesota and such, you probably want to see more Josh Jacobs. Well, I would imagine if everything goes right, as long as Green Bay doesn't fall in a deep hole in this game where they got to throw themselves back into it, this should be a Josh Jacobs type of game. I would have to imagine this is going to be a Josh Jacobs type of game. And hopefully that leads to opening it up down the field. That's who my key player in this game is going to be, is Josh Jacobs on the offensive side. Give him the rock. Get him 20-plus carries in this game. Because I think this is a game where he could eclipse the 100 yards and have himself a day. Control the clock. Control time of possession. You got a desperate Rams team who they don't want to drop to 1-4 on this season. Yeah, they're banged up and they can use injuries as an excuse and whatnot. But you're going up against a desperate Rams team. The last thing you want is to give them any bit of hope at home, any bit of confidence. So the last thing you want to do here. control the clock, have success running the football, give the rock to Josh Jacobs. Let that open up some of the routes, some of the lanes, some of the passing lanes for Jordan Love and these receivers. To me, there's everything points that this should be a Green Bay win. I mean, all over the board. This should be a Green Bay win. The only thing two things that may stop Green Bay from winning this is if the Rams, again, that whole desperation factor into it, and then if the Packers just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. Everything, this should be a Packers win. It is a banged-up Rams team. Yes, you're going on the road, and yes, you're facing them, in their house. But they're missing their top two offensive playmakers. They're struggling at stopping the run right now. This feeds into Green Bay. Green Bay coming off of a loss, too, against Minnesota. You can't lose another conference game. I know we're only entering just week 5 here, but if there are 2 losses, too, it's Philadelphia and Minnesota. Those are NFC conference losses. Get down to tiebreakers and such. You can't add another conference loss to this. So maybe Green Bay's a little desperate too, if you want to throw that out there. And you look at Stafford's numbers. Yes, he's 978 passing yards, top 10. That's 8th in the league. But he's just got 2 touchdown passes. Now, for his credit too, he's only got 2 picks this year. And he is completing 68.5% of his throws. But I want to see this defense with no Puka, with no Cooper. I want to see them get aggressive with Stafford. Yes, that is a very good quarterback back there. And he could beat you. No doubt about it. Incredibly talented. But I kind of want to see the defense be a little aggressive with Stafford here. I don't want Green Bay just to sit back and let Stafford 5 yards, 6 yards, accumulate yards through the air and have these long drives of 6, 7 yards and such and kind of keeping the Packers offense on the field. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I want to see Green Bay go and get it. Go and get it. Go get him. Unleash the noise. So, but everything points to a Green Bay win. And to me, again, the only way the Packers don't win this game is somehow, if the Rams use that desperation as motivation and it kind of unlocks an extra gear into them, or the Packers just kind of do it to themselves. Offensively, Green Bay's more complete. They can run the football with Josh Jacobs. They're going up against the worst run defense in the league. Rams are missing their top 2 wide receivers, 2 of the best playmakers in the league, easily on their team. Everything points to a Green Bay win, and it should. And they should win this game. And it'll be incredibly disappointing if Green Bay doesn't win this game on Sunday and drops to 2-3. It'll be very disappointing. And I'll just say now, unacceptable. It'd be unacceptable if they don't win this game. All right, 1 hour in. We got plenty more to go here this morning. We'll get back to some more Brewers talk after their loss from last night. We'll kick off the next hour, though, with Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. He's coming up after these news updates.
5,000 workers at ports from the East Coast to Texas is over, at least for now. Yesterday, the union and shipping companies reached a deal to suspend the strike until January 15th. Both sides say they hope the added time will be enough to reach a new labor agreement by that time, though. Reports from negotiators say the ports have increased the workers' wages from their initial offer of a 50% increase to 62%. Remember, the union has asked for a 77% wage increase over the next 6 years. The proposed new deal didn't need a union vote, and workers were supposed to be back on the job last night loading ships for the export markets. Now, if the strike had not ended, the hit to our economy would have been in the range of about $4 billion in daily losses. The original labor contract did end on September 30th, and it covered workers in 36 ports stretching from Maine to Texas. Here in the U.S., farmers are busy with the harvest, but in South America, they're trying to plant their next crop, and it's going slowly. Down there, farmers are dealing with dryness and drought in many areas. Planting flowers in Argentina and first crop soybeans in Brazil is behind, and some farmers are planting into extremely dry soils, just hoping for rain. One of the drier areas is the bountiful growing area in central Brazil, which has no soil moisture after nearly 5 months of complete dryness. Today is the final day of World Dairy Expo in Madison. The International Holstein Show starts this morning, wrap up about noon. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack is supposed to be in Madison today, but he's canceled his planned appearance at the show as he was to be part of a global dairy summit at Expo. But the highlight of the show will be, and always is, the selection of the Supreme Champion Dairy Animal of North America. That parade of champions from all the breeds will start about 4 this afternoon. The 2025 Dairy Expo is set to run September 30th through October 3rd. That's a look at some of our food and farm news this morning on Sports Talk 105.1 and AM 790. I'm Bob Bosold.
Well, the fall sports season is in full swing right now. Are you a little banged up, or have you suffered an injury that you need to get checked out? Whether you're a high school or college athlete or a weekend warrior still playing the game you love, injuries happen. But just know the team at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine are there to help you get back into the game. You're treated with top-of-the-line care, and they are with you and explaining every step of the process with you so that you know and understand what type of care you're receiving. Hey, start feeling better. Visit cvosm.com to get started.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A., copyright 2024.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Casper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Casper Show.
Second hour kicking off right now on this Friday morning of October 4th. Big thanks for tuning in. Wherever, however you may be tuning in from coming up here. I don't even know if he got any sleep, maybe about an hour or a couple hours. Brandon Berg will be joining us back from Milwaukee last night. So we'll get his thoughts of the season overall and such, and do some local sports roundup with him. Got some big football games on the dockets. We'll get back to Brewers chat. We'll throw in some more football chat coming up this week. And 2 Badgers, Ches Malusi, is stepping away from the team here to recover from a long list of injuries over the years. So we'll hit that up as well. Speaking of injuries, it's time to catch up with our doctor.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow. On the Dan Casper Show.
He is Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us here this morning. First up, you guys ready for a big game tomorrow going up against Stanley Boyd there, Doctor?
It is. Homecoming. Big game.
Yeah, big one.
Game.
Should
Yeah.
be a good one. Should be a classic, I would think, too. So, well, best of luck to your crew over there, too. So, coming off of a nice win last week as well. So,
yeah, that was a well-fought game. Yeah, it was back and forth. I mean, tied up into the third quarter, and then we were able to make a couple big plays that turned the tide. And, we had a lot of leadership from our big players on that game. So it was great. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to start off this morning, Austin, talking about a guy we've talked about a couple times here in the last couple weeks, Christian McCaffrey. Another updates on him. Apparently, he has tendonitis in both, or Achilles tendonitis in both of his Achilles, and his dad actually came out and kind of blamed his son because of his off-season training. He said, quote, "If I would say that Christian has a weakness, is that he sometimes has to protect himself from himself in terms of training too much and doing too much." Do you think that could be a reason of why he has tendonitis in both of these Achilles, is that he's working out too much or too hard?
Well, certainly, I mean, these do fall in the category of kind of overuse. I mean, there's a portion of it that's probably attributable to that. Yeah, I think I would say bilateral Achilles tendonitis is a pretty rare diagnosis. I mean, we see a good amount of Achilles tendonitis roll through the clinic, but bilateral, I mean, not to say I've never seen it, just pretty rare. So certainly there's something at play. And if you look at something that's bilateral or systemic, you look at a bigger cause usually, as opposed to kind of more of a fluke incident. So certainly, I mean, to keep in shape like he does, I'm sure he pushes his body pretty hard, and maybe there are some things he's doing in training that are exacerbating this. So I'm sure his medical staff and training team are going to look at his off-season workouts in the future for ways they can try to prevent this, or maybe incorporate some more stretching or other things that could help mitigate it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably something to that.
Switching over to the game that I don't really want to talk about with you, but we have to because a couple injuries happened last week.
What game?
Yeah, I can't remember it. I don't remember what the result was. Devontae Wyatt, Packers defensive lineman, kind of coy with his injury. Reporter said that they had seen him leave in a walking boot and crutches. Yet Matt LaFleur just the other day said more testing until we figure out what the plan is going to be. When you hear a coach after a few days, especially at this level, like you've mentioned, they're probably getting tested every single day. Is that pretty much like they're just getting second and third opinions at this point?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, they've already been assessed. They've already had probably an MRI, minimum X-rays. And so at that point, you're looking at a couple different things. One is going to be additional opinions, which NFL athletes get very commonly. The other thing, too, is some of these, I'd say, kind of more low and moderate grade injuries do evolve. In other words, someone sprains their ankle. Sometimes on day one, they're limping, can't put weight, and it's like, look, all hope is lost. And then 2-3 days later, all of a sudden they're progressing, and you kind of see how the swelling and pain respond. And so there's a little bit of both. So it's probably additional opinions. It's also some evolution of the injury and how they're progressing. So it's probably multiple things. But yeah, I mean, they've been pretty tight-lipped on that one. Whenever you go in a boot, certainly it at least raise your eyebrows and like, all right, that's a pretty significant thing. But it doesn't sound like they jump right to this is surgical or this is going to put them on the IR. So the hope is it won't be an injury that lingers for a while. But again, it's unclear exactly how severe it is.
And then Christian McCaffrey in that same game, I mean, he bent like a pretzel on that one play. And, one report from the NFL Network said it was a high ankle sprain and injured reserve was probably going to happen. Yet Matt LaFleur said kind of dodged a bullet, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be on injured reserve. Is it possible that, depending on the grade for a high ankle sprain, he potentially could be back in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. So, I mean, that certainly is a super classic mechanism for a high ankle sprain. So when I saw it happen, that first thing I thought was like, oh, that's a high ankle. Good news is it didn't break at the same time, because unfortunately we do see that where the ankle goes through that same motion. And, as there's, increasing energy applied to that ankle, you go from a low grade high ankle to a high grade high ankle, and then eventually bones start breaking. So we do see that. So thank goodness that didn't happen to him. But when you look at it, the amount of damage to the ligaments are assessed on two things. One is the clinical exam, and 2 is on the MRI. And so they have a much clearer understanding of the severity of the injury. And so, yeah, there are high ankles that can bounce back a little quicker, but I will say a legit high ankle, which that certainly looked like it's tough to get back before 4 to 6 weeks. But on the flip side, if he's not having as much pain and swelling as they first anticipated, and he's progressing more quickly, I mean, there's no reason you can't. I mean, it's going to be, if it is a kind of a grade 1, maybe grade 2, they are allowed to play as they can tolerate. So if he can tolerate it and he can go, then he might be able to go.
I got to imagine too, him being a speed guy and a wide receiver that's supposed to be a downfield threat, that would have to factor into whenever he could come back, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and they're going to be with this. It'll be. I mean, at minimum, I'm guessing it's still going to be a couple of weeks. I just don't see a way with that severity of injury that he's going to come back quicker than that. But what they'll do is they'll start doing the old game time thing where it's like, all right, we're going to get him out. We're going to have him run. We're going to have him cut. Do some drills. How's he feel? How's he look? Okay, he's go, no go. And so there's going to be that. Or the other option, of course, is to go to IR and put him on the list, and then he's out for a set number of weeks. So, but it seems like that's not the route they're going to take, which makes me think it will be more of a week-to-week assessment and evaluation. But you are absolutely correct. I mean, different positions on the football field are very different, and the demands they put in their body. And clearly, he is a guy that is fast, and he has to be able to cut and pivot hard. So that's going to probably affect his game for a little bit longer. Maybe some other positions would. Staying
with the wide receivers, one that's kind of out there and a little confusing is Rashee Rice from the Chiefs. It was a gruesome knee injury, or a lot of people, a lot of people are speculating, and still he's on IR, but they haven't really said what it is. Andy Reid said he's going to get more testing when the swelling goes down next week. I just saw Albert Breer a couple minutes ago tweet this, saying one thing we didn't get to on Thursday Night Football post-game was that Rice is expected to have his knee scoped next week after the swelling goes down. There's fear of ACL damage, but also PCL damage. Is it possible that the swelling is just so much that an MRI can't pick up what the actual problem is?
The MRI will assess it. The thing about ACLs and even more so PCLs is sometimes you'll have these partial injuries, and it's hard to say how much that really affects the integrity. And when the leg is really swollen, it's hard to get as good of a physical exam. And so a lot of it's going to be done on physical exam for that, is the actual laxity that we feel. So there's multiple different tests that we do for ACL and PCL. So what's called the Lockman test, an anterior drawer pivot shift for the PCL, a reverse pivot shift, posterior drawer. Those are all tests that we do to assess the stability of the knee. I mean, and obviously with the irony is that, interceptions thrown in your own quarterback is the one who takes out your knee. So that's the bummer for Rice. I mean, and then, everyone saw that shot of his knee clearly hyperextending. And so that is a very classic mechanism for ACL. Now, with that same impact, the further down the leg, it also applies a posterior force to the tibia. Not only do you hyperextend, but you can translate the tibia posteriorly, which is how you injure the PCL. So looking at that, my thought was ACL or PCL, or in this case, potentially both. And so I think what they're going to look at is they're going to scope the knee. They're going to look to see what amount of damage, and then they're really going to do a good exam while he's asleep. So it's called an exam under anesthesia, and they're really going to crank on it and say, all right. And there's a huge difference between scoping a knee and kind of doing a cleanup versus having to do an ACL versus an ACL and a PCL. So those are very, very different surgeries, recoveries, long-term prognosis. So I'm sure that he's kind of waiting with bated breath to see exactly what happens. But looking how, it was a direct blow to that knee, and it definitely bent back significantly. I'd have to imagine one of those ligaments was injured enough where reconstructions were going to be likely. And certainly him going to the IR and going to surgery suggests that as well.
Oh, man, that stinks. Speaking of the injuries, just kind of from watching the game, how did you think that Jordan Love looked with the knee? It looked like he was maybe favoring it a little bit, not quite sure how much weight he could put on his throws, but overall, it sounds like he came through it. Actually was a full participant in practice for the first time since week 1 yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, so watching the game, I think there's no question he favored. I mean, they showed several clips of it. You could see him kind of after a throw, his follow through, come a little ginger. That being said, a couple times during live plays, he moved within the pocket reasonably well. So, I mean, I'm sure it's still there, and I'm sure he still feels it. But clearly it's enough where he's able to move around okay. So do I think it's still affecting him? Absolutely. Do I think it's also probably a little bit mental? Absolutely. As he kind of goes through each week, as he gets a little more normalized, it should get better and better. And that's the beauty of MCLs, is that they tend to do well in the long term. So I would, I'd say, the Packer Nation should be thinking another couple weeks till this is hopefully kind of behind him altogether. But I wouldn't be surprised if he still has a little bit of a kind of giddy up in his step and maybe loses just a little bit of explosive speed due to some discomfort. Or sometimes, again, they don't trust that leg. So when they go to plant on it, it's just like, oh, it just doesn't feel great yet. So there's that aspect too. But it should heal really well. And again, long-term prognosis is excellent with isolated MCL.
And before I let you go, I got to ask, I mean, his practice window is open. How remarkable would this be if Nick Chubb gets back on the field and playing?
Yeah, I mean, that guy's been through a lot, to say the least. And it's, so what we just talked about, Rice with a multi-ligament injury, Nick Chubb's was, and that is a big, big surgery. It's not his first major reconstruction. So for him to get back and do that, I mean, it just speaks to what kind of athlete and what kind of, dedication he has to his sport and his craft. So, I mean, it is amazing as an orthopedic surgeon and football fan to see that is what people are able to put their bodies through. And I mean, we're all human beings, but some of us are made just a little bit different. And so when those guys can come back from things like that, you just have to say, wow. It'd be impressive. I just, knowing what goes into those injuries and what the knee goes through, I have to imagine he's not going to be the same player he was, but I would love to be proven wrong.
Mm-hmm. He's Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, inside the training room. As always, well, congrats on the win. We'll get you back on December 29th. Just saying.
There's still a lot of season left.
But hey, best of luck tomorrow. Big game for you guys, for Regis and Stanley Boyd. Enjoy the weekend, buddy, and we'll catch up with you again soon. Okay.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
You too. There you go. Dr. Austin Crowe. Good stuff as always with Austin. We're going to take a quick break. And Brandon Berg's in here in studio. Still awake right now, I think, too. So we'll see. We'll see how long we can get him. We might have to pump him up with some energy or whatever. We'll talk some Brewers coming up next. Tailgate this weekend with our good friends from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. If maybe you're getting some tailgating supplies for some high school football, college football, or the games on Sunday, head on over to Hy-Vee with another Tailgate weekend starting today through Sunday. Deals all over the place, including some wings, some ribeye steaks, some chicken, and snacks all over there too. You can check out their Facebook page to see the flyers and all the deals and sales happening at our good friends at Hy-Vee, or grab yourself some Man Cave Lights, some Dan Good burgers over there too to put on the grill. Brandon Berg, our good buddy, our good friends. What a couple hours of sleep coming back from Milwaukee, the good lands down there. I guess I don't really know how to kind of, segue into this thing. You texted me shortly after, which surprised me a little bit. I thought, maybe I wasn't going to bother you. I wasn't going to text you or anything like that. Still feeling the same way as you did last night a little bit?
Yeah, that sucked.
Kicking the gonads?
It was going really well until it wasn't.
Yeah. So first of all, just kind of not to kind of open up or a wound or make it bigger. What was the energy like heading into that ninth, up 2-0? And what was it like as soon as Pete Alonso hit that home run in the stadium?
I mean, there was no shortage of energy. I mean, I can't say I've been there for a bunch of playoff type atmosphere games, but that is as loud as I've heard it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was going, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, the Alonso thing, obviously it kind of built up to that point because there were, there's a few runners on and just kind of the way the inning had went. So you could kind of feel you could feel the angst kind of rising. And then suddenly it's just I know this isn't true, but I swear from where I was sitting, you could hear the Mets players celebrating after the 3-run homer. And which is kind of maybe an odd thing to say, but when you figure it, you're in a stadium with 42,000 people. You wouldn't expect to be able to hear that from, I was
you're in left field,
pretty far up the left field line. So it's not like I was close, but that's just how it felt because there was, I mean, there were, the Mets fans that were there, they were celebrating, but then there was just a lot of quiet.
I mean, it's, I don't know how else to describe, because I mean, obviously you were there. So, I mean, the emotion had to be worse than probably a lot of us, watching it on the telecast. And the thing that sucks, one, they're not moving on, but what a dominant night from Tobias Myers for a rookie making his first start. And then, I'm sure everybody was thinking, well, let's see if the move's going to work for Murphy, not allowing him to see that third. And you look at the numbers, everybody was tweeting them. You look at Tobias Myers the third time through a lineup, they're not great. So, but the way he was dealing, I'm sure there was a lot of apprehension. Trevor McGill comes in, lights out. Nick Mears comes in, lights out. Freddie Peralta comes in relief, lights out. I mean, the dominant pitching of all people, too, that you would probably feel the most confident in is Devin Williams. And it's complete different. I mean, the first walk issued all game came in the ninth from the Brewers. And I know, there's no tomorrow, there's no other game, but the fact that pitching was so dominant at the beginning, too, that's going to be forgotten at this point.
It is. And, there's some irony in there that there's a few decisions that happened in the first 8 innings that, I mean, you could have at the time questioned Pat Murphy about, taking Tobias Myers out after 5 innings, pitching Nick Mears in the 7th. Nick Mears not have great numbers this year.
I was nervous when he was out there.
Pinch hitting Jake Bauers for Rhys Hoskins. Those are all decisions that at some level it would have been fair to question, and they all worked. The irony is the one decision that ended up not working was the one nobody questioned. And that was going to Devin Williams in the 9th because he's your closer. It's set up. You have to imagine outside of winning 15-0, the exact same way or the exact way the Brewers wanted it to. They gave the ball to Devin Williams in the 9th inning with a 2-run lead.
With the top of the order coming
the top of the order. Then the day before, we moved through the top of the order.
Yeah.
And Devin Williams had an abbreviated, but a really, really good year. But there were a couple blow up appearances in there. I think of an appearance in St. Louis where it was kind of similar to this, where you could just tell right away, like, he's not on. Like, it's just.
And there, I know there's the keyboard warriors or the Twitter, Facebook, social media people out there saying they should have pulled him after, when right before Alonso was out there. And I mean, that's hindsight 2020, right? I mean,
a little bit, but also, I mean, like, when you have someone like that, you give your best players wiggle room. You don't manage everybody the exact same. And at some point someone's earned the right to get out of their own jams, or at least try to. And that's what Pat Murphy gave Devin Williams. It just didn't work. Like, even at the time during the at bats, just the thing that was kind of worrying me was it just seemed like, as much as the changeover for Devin Williams is such a weapon, like, he kept going to it, it just wasn't working. And it was just like, well, this is what I know. I gotta keep I gotta keep spamming the changeup, and Pete Alonso was looking for it. And he got one, that was up enough, and he's a big, strong dude. He hit it out.
Yeah, regardless if he was slumping at that point or
right.
not,
Oh yeah, no.
It's where when you look back at this series too, one thing that's going to stand out to me is the young guys stepping up. But where were the veterans?
Yes, exactly. That's the point. Like, when Rhys Hoskins was brought in, one of the reasons why was the idea of like, oh, well, if the Brewers make the playoffs, like, that's a guy that's been there before with the Phillies. Like, he's he's had some big hits. He can do it. He didn't really do it. I mean, I think Adames and Contreras each had one hit. And I mean, Adames led to Mitchell's home run, so I guess it was kind of a key hit. And Contreras had, I think, an RBI single in the first inning of the opener. But besides that, like, I was joking with a friend of mine, but it was kind of true. Like, during the game last night, it was almost like once you got past those two in the order, you almost felt a little bit more like, okay, hey, maybe now they can do something. Which is crazy to think that actually happened with Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick.
Yeah.
Like, it just, they just, it was a bad time. It was a bad time to, be in a slump. And that's, that happens.
Kind of goes back to like the second game too, where in that eighth, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is our top three. This is the only way we're going to get something done. If we're going to get something done, Chirio ties it up, and then Garrett Mitchell hits the 2-run shots over there too. I mean, on one side, it's positive to see these young guys kind of step up in that spotlight over there. But in the same breath, incredibly disappointing to see the veterans.
Right. And I mean, you look at the guys that stepped up on the other end for the Mets. Francisco Lindor starting it out. He had a couple hits through the walk that.
Yep.
Starting ninth. Pete Alonso, who you said was ice cold, but is an he's a star in this league. He's a free agent, going to be a free agent whenever the Mets season is done, and he's going to get a lot of money to go play first base somewhere. So, it's. I think above all else, I'm just tired of being on this end of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just exhausting that it ended the same way it's ended since 2019. With, it wasn't like, you can give all the credit in the world for Mets. They rallied. I mean, they had every reason to kind of turtle up there at the end with the way that those last few innings did, but they didn't. But like, how many times has some sort of thing like this played out for the Brewers in the postseason before? 2019, obviously, it was the 8th inning for Josh Hader against the Nationals. 2021, they couldn't score against the Braves. 2023, they kept tripping over themselves against the Diamondbacks. And for the first game and a half of this series, that's how it was this year. They, obviously, game one, we know, was an absolute mess. Game two had its bad moments too before the team and then the young guys kind of pulled the nose up a little bit. But it's just frustrating that this way was a little bit different than previously, but the same thing just keeps happening over and over. And there's been different players that have been in the middle of it. So it's not like, oh, it's, this player that's blowing it year after year. It's just different people. Like,
because that makes it more difficult because you can't fix it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, well, what do you do? It's like, I don't know. Like, it's just, it's just something that, right now is just kind of ingrained in this team, I guess. And, what do you do? Like,
you got a different manager. You've got different.
Right.
I mean,
I'd seen the stat before the game yesterday, or maybe it was after the game Wednesday, that Wednesday night, the win was the first time since probably Game 6 of the 2018 NLCS that the Brewers scored more than 4 runs in a playoff game. Like, look, obviously the Devin Williams thing, gigantic, huge. you got to score more than 2 runs. Like,
Yeah.
this just seems like it's always such a recurring theme for the Brewers in the playoffs. You have to score more runs. Like, other teams do it. Like, I get that in the postseason, like, offense is a little bit more under the microscope, but it's like, they had traffic on the bases seemingly every inning.
Yeah, they
And
had a
it was-
leadoff hitter how many times?
Yeah, it was like,
And,
three.
of
Hey,
the
there's a
first
runner
4.
on third with 2 outs. Well, here's he's a weak grounder. Like,
Yep.
Jose Quintana, man. Like,
It was a flashback to his Cubs days.
I want the Brewers to throw a bunch of money at Jose Quintana this offseason just so they don't have to hit against him. Come on in and be the 4th starter. Fantastic. I will welcome you with open arms, sir.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pitch against the Brewers.
I mean, it was set up like, I'm like, oh, crap, game 3, of course it's Quintana.
And yeah, it was just
it's like full circle moment
it
there.
is. And he went out and he threw. Like, he kept him off balance. He doesn't throw hard anymore. But you know what? He kept the Brewers off balance. They didn't hit very many balls deep in the outfield.
And
And
that's the thing though too. Like, I know, we were talking a little bit about it back and forth, and you're right. It's like it's happening every year. Which, first of all, if we would have said this back in 2008,
well, sure.
But again, we've kind of said it a few times. Expectations start to change.
Right.
It's okay. We've been there a lot now. Now we want a little bit more. It's not being greedy. It's just
your expectations change because the team has put itself in a spot that allows you to change those expectations.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, whether it's a fan or whether it's the franchise, because I guarantee you the franchise is like, okay, we're sick of this too.
Right.
But it comes down to, what are you going to do differently too? Is it spend more money to get more hitters, or I don't know, but there's nothing wrong. I don't think it's being spoiled or acting spoiled or
Absolutely
anything like
not.
that. It's like, we want a little bit more just because, great, yes, thankful we've been put in that position to compete for it, but we want a little bit more now. And that's just because we want to win a championship.
You feel like the success you've had in the regular season, I won't say earns you the right to ask for more, but it sets the expectation that I think it's okay to.
Yeah, exactly. Because what's the end game of it all? We want a championship, right? We want a World Series championship. You and I weren't around, but let's face it. I want something different besides talking about 1982 all the time.
Right.
And that wasn't even a World Series win.
Correct.
And that's not a diss on that team of Robin Young. It's just, I don't want to keep going back to that. We make fun as Packers fans for 85 Bears. At least they won that one.
Right.
know?
And on the way back for a little while when I was still near Milwaukee, I was listening to the Flagship, TMJ.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'll listen. And that was something that one of the callers brought up. He's like, he's like, hey, because Jerry Augustine's one of the guys in the postgame show, and he was with a part of that team. So he's like, hey, I'm super grateful for that team. He goes, but I want another team we can talk about in that light. Like, I want somebody else, so it doesn't always have to always go back to 1982.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with you. And it's different because, I don't know if it is different, but it's a little bit, again, you and I weren't alive when that team was out there. So, and that's, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting that.
No.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, going back to preseason, you and I had our preseason expectations, predictions, and such. You predicted Brewers going to the postseason. I didn't. But going back to the preseason prediction that you had, and now how it all ended up, is it still a successful season in your mind? Is it a disappointment? Is it a little bit both? Like, for me, first of all, it's a success because I didn't have them going to the postseason. But again, going back to expectations change, in my opinion, and goals change as the season transpires. Now you're talking about first place. It's like, okay, now you're competing for top 2. It changed now to it's like, okay, I know this team's going to be a playoff team now. Now I want them to go deep in the postseason and not just make an appearance.
If you're in it, you have a shot.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think when you kind of said like yes and no, like it is because, again, this beat our expectations. And there's reasons to be very optimistic when you look at the young guys. Like, there's reasons to be optimistic because there's no more young guys that are going to make an impact next year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like there's only so many chances you get.
Yeah.
And to have another one slip through your fingers like that is just frustrating. Because there's going to be years where that doesn't happen.
Yeah. 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 That's it. To me, is like I look at, okay, like Jackson Cheerio surpassed all my expectations. Pat Murphy surpassed, I'm going through the list of stuff that's like the positives. Robert Gasser for the very little amount of time we had. Tobias
Myers. I mean, there were no expectations. Nobody, even me, knew who he was.
Right.
In spring training.
Exactly. And now you're looking at him as
okay. That's
part of the rotation.
That's a guy. That's a guy. That's a guy you can lean on. You look at him. Obviously Freddie Peralta will be back. Like you've got. Okay, there. You've got some people there that you're looking at as cornerstones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I hate to always ask. I don't like to use the word failure when you assess a season. To me, I think there's a lot of, I don't know if I want to use the word successful. It was a disappointing end, but it surpassed my personal expectations for it. And everybody's going to be different at that point, right? I mean, and then when you factor in, they lost Wade Miley to an injury, one of their veteran starters.
Brandon Woodruff never played, and that was kind of the expectation.
Christian Yelich was having a fantastic All-Star year, and then he missed the second half.
Robert Gasser missed most of the year. Like with what he did in his first few starts, you thought like, okay, wow, here's
17 different starting pitchers.
Yeah, here's somebody like.
So there's definitely a lot of positives. It's just the end game is what we focus on and what the ultimate goal is, and that was disappointing.
Right. It's when it ends that way, it's always going to leave a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to fully look at the year and say, oh, no, it was awesome. It was great. Like, even though there's a lot of really good things that happened because of how it ended. And how it ended very similar the way it's ended the last 5 or 6 years.
There is nobody that I would not want to be right now in this world. Well, there's a few, but I can't imagine what's going through Devin Williams' mind. Like in that position, when you factor in everything, the pitching was so off. You're handed a 2-run lead, not a big lead, but it's a 2-run lead.
You had some wiggle room in there.
Yep, you're at home. It's a win or go home situation, and how it all transpired. I can't imagine that feeling.
Well, and you mentioned it on the show yesterday about Garrett Mitchell hitting the going home run. Like that's what kids dream of. Like to go from the highest of highs. I guarantee you there aren't many kids in the backyards dreaming of giving up a lead in the playoffs.
Right.
Like you go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in 24 hours.
Right.
That's what it's about this time of year.
I mean, Sal Frelick, for crying out loud, hitting his longest home run and his hardest hit ball, who was probably the most excited person in that ballpark.
Right. His first home run since May.
Yeah.
Like. My goodness, before that inning, if you had some sort of prop bet and you could have bet back-to-back homers for Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick, you probably won a lot of money.
Yeah. Go buy a lottery ticket and try your luck over there too.
Right.
Because, I mean, I was hooting and hollering in the house because I wasn't expecting that, for crying out loud.
No,
especially Frelick, no offense, but especially Frelick.
But then that one was, that was farther than Bauers. Like, from where we were sitting, I'm like the big thing was like, because you can't entirely tell the right field line. So it's like, that's fair, it's gone. And obviously it was.
You have to
it was fair by a bit. Like you just have to stare at the foul pole and you see, okay, well, I saw the ball, so it's fair.
Yep. Or kind of see the crowd reaction to how it's like a field goal almost when you're at a certain length.
Yes.
Trying to see that. But yeah, it's just, I can't imagine that type of feeling for a guy like Devin. And first it's his job. I mean, he failed at his job. He's got to do his job, and he didn't do it.
No,
he didn't.
He didn't have it.
Right.
You could tell pretty much right away. Like, okay, this is not him from Wednesday night when he just mowed through people.
I thought it was kind of telling though afterwards, and I know, and this is where I give credit to coaches and athletes when you suffer a loss like that, and then you got to sit in front of cameras and answer questions and all that.
And people ask you, "Hey, why'd you suck tonight?"
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But I thought it was kind of telling. Considering we've had how many months and days of Pat Murphy conferences, when he dropped the word, it's like a tragedy. In his post-game presser yesterday, I was like, you could tell that's hit hard in that clubhouse.
Right.
And you heard guys like, I think it was Willie Adames or Freddie or whoever say this is the closest team that they've ever played on. And think about some of those teams these last few years. When we've talked about the Brewers clubhouse,
right,
and the connection for those guys, for like a Willie Adames to say this is the closest team I've ever played on. That tells you something.
It does.
That tells you a lot. And Pat Murphy saying we can't duplicate 2024. And for people wonder, he's talking about the connection and the chemistry within that clubhouse. I know there were some smart aleck responses on Twitter. Like, well, we don't want to duplicate. It's not what he's talking about, with wins and loss perspective.
Right.
So, but yeah, when you hear kind of like a Pat Murphy, who we've seen him get emotional and kind of, but to drop the word tragedy, it was like, ooh, that had to hit hard. It sucks, and it's a kick in the gonads. It's a straight up kick in the gonads.
There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah,
It's a kick
and
down south.
yeah, and I feel like I'm partially responsible because I jinxed it, waking my kid up to watch the final 2 outs. I was trying to be.
And I will bring this up. Shout out to the very nice Venezuelan woman that was sitting next to me and my friends at the game, because she had an even worse night than us. Well, she did get Jackson Churio's attention at one point, so she was pretty excited about that.
Ooh, okay.
But she lost to 50-50 by one number.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think it was like 37 or 41. I forget. It was.
Wow.
Yeah, we were talking to her about that. That was she was taking it a lot better than I would. I might have just left at that point. I'm gonna be honest.
One number.
Yeah, she was showing it to our friend, and like we're looking, we're like, oh, it was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
she was very nice, and yeah, she deserved better than that. If you're gonna lose by a million numbers, not by one.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
If you're gonna lose a game 3, lose by a lot and not like that. Right.
Yeah.
I think we'll do top 5 in the next hour.
Okay.
We might as well hit that up. So should we throw it out to some other people out there too?
Oh, sure.
So Brandon, that's why I wasn't sure if you want to do it. If it was just, sometimes we get emotional after losses like that. But Brandon texted me last night. Top 5, what'd you say? Top 5 most heartbreaks?
Top 5 biggest sports heartbreak. Your personal for you, like
personal,
games,
yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Like, and I figured just games would be best. Like,
yeah. Not seasons. We'll do games.
Yeah.
Individual like that. So we'll do that in the next hour. We'll give time for some people to maybe text us theirs. Yeah, if you like. 715-830-1912. Earlier, Mark, on the Brewers, the baseball gods always make you pay when you walk the leadoff hitter. However, let's be real, big picture. Who last spring envisioned the crew being within a couple of outs of the NLDS without Yelich? Quite a success engineered by Murph. So we'll take a quick break and kind of regroup here, but hit us up with some messages, peeps. 715-830-1912. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. We got about 9 minutes to the top of the hour here this morning. I know it's not a Tuesday for Grind My Gears or a Festivus, but I will say one thing. Can we please stop with the in-game interviews on games like this?
You never learn anything.
No.
Like I've now, like the NFL's doing it more. Like I think they interviewed Kevin O'Connell in the game last Sunday. It's just like they're never going to tell you anything. Like it's just no. I agree, and you're just annoyed. Like you're just bothering people while they're working. Like
right.
You don't get anything out of it.
Like the one that really kind of grinded my gears was right after Garrett Mitchell hit the home run. Hey, let's go talk to him. No, I want to watch the game. It's still kind of close.
Right.
Put it back on there. Who cares?
If they win, you'll talk to them after the game.
Right. Like what SVP did afterwards.
Right.
What
yeah, I agree.
This need of in-game interviews is just get rid of it, for crying out loud. You're right, because especially like with football, they gonna tell you anything. I mean, the one coach that I will watch because he is easily annoyed with all of it is Greg Popovich.
Yes. Yes.
He's complete. I mean, some can be kind of.
What do you think a coach is gonna say? Yeah, this first play of the second quarter, we're gonna take a shot, Dave.
Yeah. Or he's like, yeah, so and so he screwed it up for us.
Yep.
That's come on, we gotta stop this. That's just ridiculous. Especially that Garrett Mitchell one, just really like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? Especially when it was a close game still, and you're taken away from like, get out of it. I want to see what the at bat, for crying out loud. So, but I gotta, credit to those coaches and players because they have to do it, otherwise the coaches get fined, which is ridiculous in my opinion. So, but I know a lot of people were kind of complaining about the TV aspect of it.
I had seen because I didn't watch too much of game one because I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Game two, I obviously sat down and watched. Game three, obviously I didn't. But I mean, Boog Shambi. I like Boog when he does because he does cup stuff, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug Lamb, I think they're good. Maybe they just didn't have a good showing.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it too was the in-game stuff. Kind of like you add that on, it just kind of gets lumped together a little bit.
Right.
So. C-Bomb said heartbreak, this close to the feeling after the 14 NFC Championship game, that feeling that we had it, and Dennis Green's voice, we let him off the hook. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, but I'll wait for it for your top five. I got to imagine this isn't your top five, right? Or is it just?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
it is.
And this is personal. These are our personal ones,
these are personal ones, and I'll be able to kind of talk, because there's going to be a connection for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just sports heartbreak as far as losing.
I think we have the same number one.
We do. I'm pretty sure we do because we've talked about it before.
Yeah, we got the same number one. Then after that,
which you may not guess.
No, I mean,
if you've listened to the show for a while, you may know it because you may remember it.
But if you just generally know us,
and you
won't guess it.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
You won't guess it.
But it is unequivocally my number one.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
There's no question.
It is the worst I have felt the day after something.
Yes.
Because I remember I had to come in here, and this was when we only had it for an hour. I didn't want to talk.
Right.
I literally didn't want to talk. I was done.
Yep.
So, but you're right. If you just generally know us, you won't guess it.
Right.
If you're a diehard, you'll know it though. So,
yeah.
Do we even want to do cream of the crop today?
Yeah, okay. We better because I actually do have one. All
right. So coming up next, we'll start it off with some local sports roundup, and then we'll do our top five heartbreaks, sports heartbreaks, personal ones. And we're not doing like ones we've played in, right? We're talking like pro or college. As a fan.
Yeah, as a fan.
Okay, so I like it. Rest of you, I got a feeling what a very popular Packer one's going to be. So I mean, everybody else you can text it on in and that sort of stuff there too. So, but you want to do cream of the crop now?
Might as well, yeah.
All right, let's do cream of the crop here. We'll change the mood here a little bit. By the way, you probably haven't had time. Have you watched the Vince McMahon Netflix documentary?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. I mean, I've heard people. I mean, people I trust. They have kind of given their reviews and stuff like that, and it's kind of what I expected. Where if you're a casual fan or something, you'll probably learn a lot. But there's a lot of stuff I think people already kind of knew.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Okay. So,
Yep.
really quick, I got to read this. I didn't hear this until now. Willie Damas said he did wait for Jesse Winker in the parking lot.
A friend of mine texted me that last night. Yeah.
Okay. I thought he was just
It was
okay,
just posturing. No, he.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Something was
Right.
said there. So, all right, go for it.
My cream of the crop, and I'm bummed I have to say it this week. Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah, I was honestly, I was when that happened. One of the first things I thought of was you wearing the jersey at the Casper Classic a couple of years ago. So
the tremendous one with the mountains, or the colorful mountains on it. But yeah, passed away earlier this week, brain cancer. I mean, if you've listened to the show, you know. I mean, one of my favorite players as a kid. Like, I just thought it was awesome. There's this really big guy that blocks people's shots and
the finger wave.
I mean, such a great career, and 8-time All-Star, Hall of Famer, but also such a philanthropist.
Yes,
like his work he did in his home country. To be able to, back in the Congo, to building hospitals there, like all the other stuff he did. He was on, he worked with Special Olympics. He worked with just so many different organizations, and I mean that's just a great example of somebody having that celebrity, having that status, but using it in good ways.
Yeah,
and just
that was. I mean, you and I are both lovers of '90s hoops. That's one of the players I think about '90s hoops.
Yeah,
and
he played a long time.
Yeah,
91 to 2009. He played till he was 42.
Yeah.
But he had the type, and look, obviously the last 6-7 years of his life, I mean, he was a role player. But I mean, he was a guy that you can appreciate the fact that he committed to the craft of defense. The block shot. I mean, as a guy that, when he got to Georgetown for John Thompson, like there was no, I mean, he didn't have a lot of basketball trade. He learned the game. He figured it out.
Yep. No. The image of him holding the ball after upsetting the Sonics.
Sonics, yep.
I remember him with Atlanta with Mookie and Steve Smith, and then the trade to Philly. I mean, that finals with Shaq and the Lakers.
He was there in the finals in 01 with the Sixers when they beat the Bucks.
Yep. So, I'm gonna go a little bit of a different route here, because this actually broke after the game yesterday. I think it's a good hire by the Reds to bring in Terry Francona.
That surprised me. I saw that when we were walking out. Like, if he's like, I hope he's feeling good. That's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing. Yep.
If he can do it, great on him. And yeah, that's a great hire by the Reds. I mean, I've talked on here before how highly I think of Terry Francona.
Yep. And I think with that young talent over there, if you can bring in Terry Francona, you look at the track record that he has done. Coming into teams, I think that's a great hire and just makes that division even more difficult now. For years to come, right? With the NL Central. So, all right, kind of been a whirlwind week for Reds with Pete Rose, and now you got Terry Francona coming over there. But all right, 2 hours in, we got one more to go. We'll do some local sports roundup, and then our top 5 heartbreaks. Send us yours. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Final hour on this Friday morning of October 4th. A big thanks for tuning in, however, wherever you may be tuning in from. Brewers fans, your thoughts, your feelings on the season, on the series. Last night, you can get it off your chest if you have to. Hit us up with a quick text. Comment on the video stream, all that good stuff over there. Quite a few watchers on the video stream. Probably wanted to see how Brandon looks coming back from Milwaukee last night over there. So big thanks for tuning in over there. We're going to do local sports roundup coming up here in just a couple minutes. Also, after that, we are going to do, usually Brandon and I do a podcast most of the time after Fridays, and we usually do, if you're a first timer, we do a thing called Top 5 Plus, and we usually do it on the podcast, but we're going to do it live because of two reasons. One, Brandon needs to take a nap. Two, I'm actually leaving to go hit the woods after we're done. I'm going to try to get up into a tree here. So we're going to do it live. We're going to do it live coming up here. But you can play along with us if you want. Hit us up with your biggest heartbreaks. Jeff, Packers lost to the Seahawks in the 14-15 NFC Championship game. Hands down the biggest sting. Have never watched the replay or highlights of that game. I think that's going to be the most popular pick, I think, from Packers fans. But I will say this, little tease, that's not my number one Packer one. That's not my number one. But again, this is our personal.
Right.
There's reasons for it. So, but before that, local sports roundup, Brandon. Let's start off with some high school football. It's not tonight, but tomorrow, a big time matchup. Regis, Stanley
Dr.
Boyd.
Crow's Regis Ramblers.
Yeah. That is a big
massive
matchup.
Massive game in the Clover Belt. Both teams unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams are playoff eligible. Both teams are stay ranked. And yeah, they collide tomorrow morning at Carson Park.
Yeah. Yeah. That homecoming too. I think Austin said when we talked to him a little bit earlier over there as well. So we got that one. How about some other games on the dockets coming up here?
Another big night in the Big Rivers tonight. You've got Menominee taking on New Richmond, Rice Lake and River Falls. You got Chippewa Falls hosting DC Everest, and that's a crossover matchup, so that will count towards the conference record for the Cardinals. And DC Everest leads the Wisconsin Valley Conference right now. Their only loss is at the start of the year to Rice Lake.
Okay,
they've been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, big win for New Richmond. They knocked off Rice Lake in a battle of unbeatens and a heck of a game. So they're all alone up top the conference with Rice Lake and Menominee a game back. Chippewa Falls Hudson 2-2 right there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a stacked and busy conference, I guess would be a nice way to put it there. Looking down in the Dairyland, you've got Aliva Strum and Pepinalma up top. They're going to meet up here coming up here in the next couple of weeks, but not tonight. So I mean, Pepinalma had a great year last year, and they've come back and they're right there with it again this year. So I know otherwise in the 8-man game, McDonald makes a trip north to Luck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually this afternoon going to be in New Auburn for New Auburn and Frederick.
Okay.
And then tonight I will be at Chi High for Chippewa Falls and DC Everest. So that's going on. But right now, I mean, you've got teams that are playoff eligible. You can't flat out say that they've clinched a playoff berth, but they have.
I mean, essentially they
barring
have.
something crazy, they have. I mean, if right now you're 4-0 in conference play, I mean, you're
gonna go.
You've done it, even though it's not like the official terminology for it. They just say you're playoff eligible.
Mm-hmm.
You've clinched. So both Stanley Boyd and Regis, they're already in.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned New Richmond, they're already in. There's
right.
plenty of other teams out there, they're already in. So, but yeah, we're in the final third of the season here.
Mm-hmm. So we got that just a couple weeks left of regular season. So, and then we're going to be talking about the seedings and brackets.
Yes, that will be 3 weeks. So
yeah,
but yeah, then you look at the Big Rivers World for volleyball.
Yeah,
Hudson currently up top. I mean, they picked up a big win last night over River Falls. Both those teams came into that matchup unbeaten in conference play. River Falls has kind of been the a bit of the bully of the region for the last several years. Outside of 2022 when Chippewa Falls beat them to go to state, but that Hudson team is very good. I mean, that's probably going to be a favorite come postseason time, even though I'm sure there's other teams out there that are going to have something to say about it. River Falls, Eau Claire North picked up a straight set win over Chippewa Falls last night. So, right now that conference kind of runs through Hudson a little bit there. The Western Clover Belt, McDonald's the last unbeaten team in that conference. They picked up a win last night over Cadott. You got both Fall Creek and Regis kind of hot on their heels, and actually the Macs play both those teams next week. So a lot to be decided yet there with that coming up. We had girls golf's regionals this week. Excuse me.
That's right.
And Chippewa Falls McDonald finished third behind Hudson. They're going to be moving on to sectionals there. We had girls tennis. Big Rivers earlier this week, Eau Claire Memorial. Not a big surprise, but congratulations to the Old Abe's. They take home another conference championship. You've got sub-region or sub-sectionals and sectionals coming up next week. So we'll be getting into it there. Obviously, girls golf sectionals is early next week too. So we're getting to the point where we're going to be having some state teams for some of those some of those sports that always go first. So
right. Yeah. Cross country.
Cross country. We're getting to the home stretch of the regular season. We're a couple weeks away from conference meets. So
and states at Rapids again, I'm assuming.
States always at Rapids, yeah. So except for the COVID year, it wasn't. But yeah. So that's coming up there. I mean, we are getting to it. Man, we are getting to it.
Yeah, no kidding.
It gets here quicker every year,
right? So. Couple weeks until we get to like the conference and postseason stuff and all that sort of stuff. So, but I know Blue Gold wise, we've got they're going to be back in action for football. Tough one going up against River Falls. River Falls, one of the best teams in the country at the D3 level, and then Stout football is going to be taking on Stevens Point too. Both Stout and the Blue Golds coming off of off weeks last week to get back at it. So, but. All right. So where are you going to be at again tonight for football?
I will be starting this afternoon with the day game, 4 p.m. start for New Auburn hosting Frederick. Once I'm done there, I'll hustle down to DeRay Field for Chippewa Falls DC Everest. Then tomorrow morning, I will be at Carson Park for Stanley Boyd.
I was going to ask if you were going to go to that Regis and
part of the reason I was able to go to the game last night is because my schedule worked out to where I'm just going to be very busy today and tomorrow. So I will be loading up on the sugar. If you see me at a game and you have any gummy worms or something, give them to me. I will need them.
Gummy worms. That's your go-to one?
Sugar.
Okay. Gummy worms is an interesting. I do like them. Can't be the hard gummy though. It's got to be like a little soft. I can't do the chewy.
Yeah.
Gummy bears or
But and I always go day to day. Like, do I like gummy worms or sour worms? Like, I like them both. But it just depends how I'm feeling that day.
Yeah. As long as it's just not hard. I'm
right.
good.
Yeah. I don't need to.
Gotta have a good gummy worm and a little dirt dessert cup too.
Can't go wrong there.
No, sir. Really quick on 8-man football too, because last week we had some dominating wins, didn't we? Was it like Gilman?
We did. Really, Gilman picked a big win over Thorpe. Owen Withey still unbeaten. I mean, they're the number one team in the state right now. They've actually got coming up next week a big game with Clayton.
Okay.
Who is a state ranked team, so that's going to be an important game for a couple different reasons. McDonald picked a big win over Cornell, but I mean, right now.
How impressive a performance was that for that Highway 73 rival between Gilman and Thorpe there?
I mean,
with the way Gilman
it was
won.
A good bounce back. I mean, I remember I chatted with Coach Rosemeyer after they lost to McDonald, and Gilman had their chances to win that game. And he said, he goes, look, with the way that conference is, when you've got a bunch of good teams, he's just like, look, we can't feel sorry for ourselves because we get a rivalry game next week, and we know that Thorpe's not going to feel sorry for us because we lost our last game. So no, that was a good bounce back effort for them. They play Owen Withey actually the last week of the regular season too. So that could be a big one. Owen Withey currently has a 1-game lead in the conference over McDonald and Gilman.
Okay.
There is still a possibility of a shared conference. Owen Withey controls his own destiny though, as long as they keep winning. They got nothing to worry about. But they've got some big matchups on the horizon there. So and remember the 8-man football playoffs, that should be a round fewer. So you have 4 rounds to get to state. And then that's technically your 5th round. There's 1 round fewer. The 8-man playoffs are smaller, so your semifinals are actually during the quarterfinal round.
Now, when it gets to state, they don't decide the location right away.
The last few, they kind of have. Like the last few years, they've done Rapids.
Has it been? Okay.
It's been Rapids.
Okay.
Because the first few years, they were doing neutral site because the first one was in Stanley at Oriole Park. The other one was at DeRay Field in Chippewa. Like they would wait, but I think now they've kind of just established Rapids as kind of that go-to because I mean,
Center of the
last year it was
state.
Thorpe and Florence, and Rapids wasn't exactly in the middle. Maybe
Right.
it was a bit of a drive for both, so that doesn't. I mean, that wasn't
Mhm.
the issue. But I think they've pretty much just established that Rapids is going to be the site. And Rapids is a good site. That field there that they have at Lincoln High School is
Mhm.
really nice. So that's it's a good one. And
Mhm.
it's got enough seating. And last year was, I believe, the most attended 8-man title game yet.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of the go-to with that.
Gotcha. All right, that's your local sports roundup. Let's take a quick break. We got a couple more texts here before we get to our heartbreaks. John, his top 5 sports heartbreaks. Number 1, death of Dale Earnhardt. Number 2, when the Packers lost to the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Number 3, the Packers-Seahawks playoff game. Number 4, Badgers losing the national championship against Duke. Number 5, last night's Brewers game. Another texter, 4th and 25. The Packers Seahawks game, last night's Brewers, 18 Brewers, Bucks Raptors. And then another texter says, just like G-Man says, you can bet your 401k that the Brewers will break your hearts. What a bummer. So, all right, we'll take a quick break, and then we've got our top 5 coming up here. Again, I think Brandon and I, we know our number 1. Should we start with number 1 because
maybe that might
maybe
be where
that's the best way to go about
yeah.
it. So. But last call, get yours in. See if we got any matches over there. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, Brandon, are you ready to go down memory lane and get your heart broken all over again here this morning?
Oh, sure. It's been about, what, 12 hours? Let's do it again.
You might as well, right? So, I mean, you sure you want to do this now?
Yeah.
All right.
I texted you this while I was waiting in line after the game, so. And it was an
waiting
idea.
in line to get out, or?
I was waiting in line. We took the one of the buses in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because we weren't tailgating, and because we had people traveling from all over, so it's like, look, we're not gonna tailgate. We'll just meet somewhere, and then went, and we did, and it worked out very well. Kudos to there's a guy on our bus on the way back where apparently the one we were on was this lady said it was the karaoke bus. So basically, hey, she was looking for people that wanted to sing along, which I appreciate her effort. Like, she was very nice and everything. It just wasn't the time.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate that there was one guy who the song he suggested was "Loser" by Beck.
Ah, yeah.
I'm like, I don't feel that. But no. Again, she's very nice. I appreciated the effort, but it just wasn't the time. Even a regular season game, I would have been, hey, but that time it's just like, no, not tonight, ma'am.
Not tonight. All right. Should we do number one since we both
Let's
have the
do
same?
it. Let's start. We'll start with number one because
we both got it. So this is our top 5 plus heartbreaks, sports heartbreaks as fans, not as players or anything like that. But you do want to say yours, and we'll just see. Is it Badgers?
It's 2015 Badgers basketball national title game lost to Duke.
Yep, that's mine too.
Yep.
First time, like, I remember coming in next morning, didn't want to talk. I was just that one hit hard, and I don't know if it was the same reason for you, but I had the mindset of like, it ain't happening again.
Right. And
it's not going to happen again.
And they haven't been close. So,
and that team, I mean, even the year prior, that team was just so fun.
Yes.
Frank the Tank. Yeah, good. Frank the Tank.
Decker,
Nigel
Gosser.
Hayes, Gosser, Bronson.
Yeah, as a younger guy.
Yep.
Like, there's
I mean, you had good stories, or the stenographer stuff at the tournaments, Bo Ryan. I mean, it was just such a fun team, and it was a good team. And to be there with Duke, and they almost did, it was just.
And they were up. Like, it's just the most Wisconsin sports thing of it all. They had a double-digit lead in the second half, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes away. And, I mean, Justice can tell it a lot better because he was there for it. Like, it's you might have to ask him about that on Monday. Just like, hey,
I don't want to revisit it.
But yeah, because they were him and Chance were there for TV13, covering it, and
I got asked to go, and I couldn't. And part of me is like, am I glad, or am I?
Would you have wanted to see them in that in that spot?
Right.
Knowing there's a decent chance it may not happen again, at least not in our lifetimes.
No, but that is my number one for sure.
Samesies.
So, all right. So should we just go straight down number 2?
Let's do that.
Okay. So number 2 for you, Brandon.
Number 2 for me is 2011 Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay. Yep.
Because I'll explain this here, but a bit like the Badgers that you just mentioned, at the time that felt like that was it. That felt like that was the shot. They made it in 2008, but I mean, let's be real. Everyone was just happy to be there.
Yep.
2011.
That was last year Prince.
Right. It was last year Prince Fielder. Like they had geared up for that. They had made the trades for Greinke and Markham.
Yep.
Mid-season trade for Francisco Rodriguez.
Yep.
So like it just felt like, okay, if it's gonna happen, now's the time. And remember, the only other real thing that any of us had was that 2008 year. Otherwise, like this was still very much foreign territory for us.
Yeah.
And then, the way the series goes, they win game 1 against the Cardinals. They get it back to Milwaukee. And I got scared on Wednesday when they had the stat about, I think it was Churio had the first leadoff home run for the Brewers in the playoffs since Corey Hart in game 6 of 2011. I'm just like, oh no, don't show me that. But yeah, so that was why that one will always, and maybe it hurts a skosh less.
You were at game 6 too.
I was
not.
I was not.
Okay.
No. I was watching with
somebody else. Yeah.
No, I have a friend that was.
Yeah, I have a friend too.
No, that one. Yeah, that one.
That was another game I turned down to go to because it
was a Sunday night.
Yep. Because I believe that was the weekend too that I went to the Packers-Rams game. And I was just like, I don't want to go. I had to get home, and that's just long traveling and that too. So
Yeah.
But I was at that game 5 for 2011 against the Diamondbacks. Still, if we were to do top 5 memories, that'd be top 5 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that walk off there. But yeah, I mean that's I still have the Sports Illustrated with Bronny Fielder and Tony P, Niger Morgan on the cover. Can picture it to this day. Yeah, that's a good one too. My second one, so it's a little bit more of a personal one here too, but I am going with the 07-08 NFC Championship, Packers Giants, because I was there.
It was cold.
And it was cold, but to backtrack it a little bit, I mean that season was just, again, you talk about season going over expectations.
Right.
Early in the year, I remember this. So this was my junior year in college, 4th year in college. But it was like that summer, me and my buddies, my roommates were like, hey, let's go to the Packer Vikings. When you could just buy Packer Vikings without the preseason, it was like $20 a piece. And it was at the Metrodome. So we're like, yeah, we'll go. It's early on. Way before we knew about the Favre record, and it ended up, I remember that week before watching the Chargers game, don't do it. We want to see it, So we saw that. So, you had that built in, that memory. But then we went and tailgated for the Snow Globe game, the playoff game against the Seahawks. Didn't have tickets, turned down tickets, actually. But we tailgated through that. And then I remember the next day watching that Cowboys-Giants game. I'm like, Cowboys lose this, I'm going. I'm going, and the Cowboys lose it. Tickets were like, I think I had way up top for $500. I had to use financial aid money to go. But I'm like, I'm going because I'm like, oh, I want to see them celebrate going to the Super Bowl because we're beating the Giants. And then it was like this cold, sort of thing. And then just how it toyed with my heart, all the missed field goals from Tynes. And I was sitting next to a couple guys from New York. And I'll still remember, the muffed, if Tramon Williams would have just jumped on that muffed punt by the Giants, we would have Brett Favre throwing an interception. But when Tynes lined up for that last field goal, those New York fans called every miss. They're like, dude, don't worry, he's going to miss. And he missed. Second one, he's like, dude, he's going to miss this one too. But the third one, and you're like, yeah, sorry, man, he ain't missing this one. And they called it. So it was the quietest I've ever heard Lambeau out there. So just from a personal standpoint.
Understandable.
Like somebody said they couldn't watch highlights. I had that mindset. I did not watch ESPN for the week after because I didn't want to watch anything with Giants. I went in that thing. I'm like, I'm not watching the Super Bowl between the Giants and Patriots. I did.
Yeah.
But I had like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So that's my second one.
Yep. Yep. I got you. Well, this leads in well to my number 3. 2009, I guess it would be technically the 2010 NFC title game. Vikings lose to the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I watched it at my dad's. I drove back from college, watched my dad's a Vikings fan. My dad's the reason I'm a Vikings fan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I drove back to his house. We watched it. Obviously, that game went the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, after the game, I just sat there and I watched all of the post-game stuff. And I'm just like, I just need to, take this in. It sucks, but just watch it. Watch it all, And then you mentioned the whole Super Bowl thing. 2 weeks later, obviously, then the Saints go on to beat the Colts in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
We go to, we actually went and watched that Super Bowl at a local watering hole in Oshkosh with a couple friends of mine. And when you walk in, they said, "Hey, who are you cheering for?" Basically, you got a wristband based on what team you were cheering for. And every time that team scored, you got a free drink.
Mm-hmm.
I was cheering for the Colts because I like the Colts. I wanted them to win, but also
I
was bitter.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Still am. But and first half, it's going all right. Second half, obviously the Saints take control. It gets away, and I may have been a little overserved. But long story short, next morning I go to my class. I go at a journalism class 10, 20. And I don't look great. I'm not sick. I don't look great.
Mm-hmm.
Probably kind of how I look right now. And I sat down it was a computer lab. Sit down at the desk at a computer lab, and boss. But teacher comes up to me, goes, "Oh, hey, Brandon, how's it going?" I'm just like, "Not great." He just kind of looks at me and goes, "That's right, you're a Vikings fan, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep." He just puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, "Class will be done in about 20 minutes." Class was done in about 20 minutes.
That's awesome. So my number 3 is actually, I will go with the NFC Championship game of 14-15. Now, that one annoyed me. Yes, it upset me. It was a huge heartbreak. Maybe not to the level of like a lot of people did, because it's a number one for a lot of people. I think what annoyed me the most, that I remember most about that, is before the game was over, all the constant postings on Facebook saying we're going to the Super Bowl, we're going to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, please don't jinx it. We've been down this road before, kind of sort of, and what happened. And to the gutless people who deleted all those posts, own up to it.
Right.
Because I tried going back to them at that, because I was going to yell at them, and they deleted them. But yeah, I mean, I remember sitting there just clenching my jaws watching it all go down. And I could just feel like my neck popping out. Like I was just like, I didn't say anything. I wasn't hooting and hollering. It was just silence. Because I was watching the game by myself, actually.
Right. And I remember, and I will say this too, I was watching that and I was actually already with a few minutes left, I was actually already trying to plan out like the pages for the next day of the Herald. Like, okay, the Packers are going to the Super Bowl. What am I going to do here? This different stuff. And then I had to redo it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, it was kind of very similar to maybe last night's game. You're up with just a few minutes.
But it's obviously that's to go to the Super Bowl versus,
right.
But still,
right.
yes.
A
game where you just, for so long, you feel like they got it. And then something happens, you go, oh no.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's number 3 for me.
Yep.
Your number 4.
My number 4 is going to be the Wisconsin Badgers football team losing in the 2017 Big Ten title game. Because they were 12-0 at that time. If they win, they're in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in the college football playoff, the way it went, they are going to the Sugar Bowl. And that is a game I was going to. I have a friend of mine at the time that lived 6 blocks away from the Superdome.
Mm-hmm.
I was going. I was spending an irresponsible amount of money if it took it to go. Like, all they had to do was win. And granted, that was not easy because they played Ohio State. And that was just a game where, like, we've seen a lot over the years of the Badgers in the spot like that. Like, they didn't play bad. They just didn't play great.
Right.
And that was just one that, just like, man, obviously now, college playoff has expanded. It's a little bit different, but still, like, when it was that kind of exclusive 14 party, and you made it.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, man, because they could have gotten totally annihilated by Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
I could have said, hey, the Badgers are in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They were a semifinalist.
Mm-hmm.
They were one of the 4 best teams in the country that year.
Yep. Nope. That's a good one.
That stuck with me for a bit.
My number 4, I'm going with the 2018 Brewers. Specifically that Game 7 against the Dodgers. In that one.
Chris Taylor, you jerk.
I keep thinking it was Cody Bellinger, whatever. But it's funny because now, I think it's on Brewers.com, Adam McCulvey. It all started with Chris Taylor's catch.
Yeah.
Like this recent trend, all started with Chris Taylor's catch.
That's a very good way to put it. But yeah, I remember exactly where I was for that. I was driving back from covering a regional final volleyball game. Bloomer played, I think, Rice Lake. Bloomer lost. Did Bloomer lose? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I forget. But I was coming back and I was listening to that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming off the exit to Chippewa when that happened. Because I think first Euchre said it thought I got down.
Right.
And then he's just like, oh no, he caught it. I'm just like, oh, we just all know when something happens in sports, and maybe it wasn't like a Pete Alonso 3-run home run, but you're just like, oh no, like that.
It sucked the energy in the air.
It did.
Not only in the stadium, but like watching it. Because
listening to it, I just felt like, oh no.
Yeah, like watching, I'm like, oh, you just felt like it sucked everything out of there. And I think a lot of people, I had the mindset too, because that was the year the Red Sox were just, say what you want now afterwards, but they were like, okay, nobody's going to beat the Red Sox in the World Series. But it was just that close to get there too. And that series, you had Brandon Woodruff hitting a home run off Kershaw.
That was such a back and forth series. They came back like that Game 6 where they came out so hot. Like, it just felt like, who knows? Yeah, maybe they go and they just get annihilated by that Red Sox team.
Right.
But you know what? They would have that shot. And as we talked about before, we want something besides 1982.
Right.
If it never happens for us and we were old and gray, and well, I'm already gray, but
ditto. So
but in 30 years we could have said, hey, yeah, but that 2018 team.
Yep. Because you were out game 163 that year too.
I was. Yeah, we made the trip. Actually, a couple of my friends I was at the game with last night, we're a part of the group that went to Chicago.
Yeah. And I remember watching that one here actually in our newsroom at the end there too. So yeah, game 7 2018. I go under just because it's that Chris Taylor catch that's just like, oh crap, sort of thing. So
my number 5, I will put last night's game on there. I mean,
Yeah.
I will, just because even though it's a little bit lower stakes than a lot of these other ones on this list, but being there live and to have such a gut punch with it, to go from the highest of highs of Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick hitting home runs, allowing 2 hits going into the 9th. You got the guy you want in that spot, and it just gets away. It just, as we talked about earlier, it's just what we've had for the last, going back to the Chris Taylor catch.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just, it was the same thing, just in a little bit different way.
Yeah. No, I thought about putting it in my top 5. It probably would be an honorable mention for me. And obviously, I think that one would hit you more than it would me because you were there.
Yeah, correct. And that's why. Like, it had.
That's why the 07 championship hits me more than probably a lot of people because I was there.
And it hits you maybe more than the 14 one, even though that one is a little bit more spectacular in how it happened.
Yes, exactly. So my 5th one, I'm going Super Bowl 32. I was in 6th grade. 6th grade. Yeah. And I mean, you win the previous year and you have, you at that point, you're hearing everything on TV. Oh, these huge favorites, But I just remember my reaction after the last pass. That was an incomplete from Favre to Chimera over the middle. I backhanded the arm of the couch, and it was a wooden thing, and I thought I broke my wrist because I was so upset as a 6th grader. Like, I remember shutting up, and I was just upset. I was mad. So I remember that vividly, and I was heartbroken after. As a 6th grader, I was heartbroken. Packers lost the Super Bowl thinking, hey, we're going to win 2 in a row. So, yeah, probably Super Bowl 32. I do have I don't know if I'd say honorable mentions. One would be an honorable mention. But I want to throw these 2 out there just because of the moment they happened. And we would talk about heartbreaks. An instant heartbreak. I will say the Final Four against Kentucky when Bader hit that shot. Yeah. Because that was when Kentucky and UConn played for the national championship, 7-8 seed. I really believe Wisconsin would have won the national championship. They would have beat UConn that year. Kevin Ollie's UConn, not Dan Hurley's UConn.
Yeah.
But that 3 is like, because when it happens, it's like that's a gut punch.
Yeah.
Right there. Especially when it's like 3 feet behind the arc.
Yep.
The other one, this one I don't know if I put an honorable mention, but it sucked. Badgers and the Gators at Madison Square Garden when Zach Showalter hit that one, and then the floater in the lane. It's like
when the full length of the court.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a Sweet 16 2017.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the last time the Badgers have been in the Sweet 16.
I'm just like, oh, really? Because how many times we've all done those floaters, and they always go off the back of the rim because you put too much on it, and it's just like it's those last second game winning shots. If you're on the opposite end of that, it's like, oh crap.
Yep.
So
I've got 4 honorable mentions, but I'll be quick on them. 3 of them are Vikings ones.
Oh, okay.
I put 98 on there, but the only reason 98 is not higher is because I was younger. So I don't think I fully understood the scope of it at that time. I knew it sucked, but I don't think I understood like the historical nature of like the 98 Vikings and yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
I put the 03 Nathan Poole game because that might have been actually the maddest I've ever been after a Brewer game or after a Vikings game. Like I was an angry kid, angry kid. And then the 2015 Blair Walsh game.
Oh yeah.
Where
the ice cold, TCF.
Which I was thinking about going to that game. I'm glad I didn't.
Luke did.
Yeah, I did. Yes, he did. But I just remember I was watching with a friend of mine, and when he missed the kick, and even before, he's like, "So what do you think?" I go, and I swear to you, I said, "I think he's too close." I would have had more faith in him making that from 50, even in that weather. I went to the fridge. I grabbed a bottle of blackberry brandy. I just took a big pull. I sat back down, and I got a text from my sister, she's not a Packer fan, she's not a Viking fan, but she wanted the Vikings to win. She's like, "Oh, that really sucks." I just texted her back. I go, "When you're a Vikings fan, these things happen."
Because didn't that game too kind of very similar to that 14 NFC Championship game? Russell hits that deep throw or whatever.
He got like there was
a
play
running around.
There's a play he should have got sacked.
Yeah,
that
he
was
just
like
throws it up.
The Vikings were winning most of the game. There was a play where like he should have got sacked. He did a Russell Wilson thing where he kept the play alive and made a big throw down the field that kind of set the go ahead. The Vikings move into range.
Yep. It's almost like the 2-point conversion that Russell threw against Packers. Like it's like somebody else catch it. You had all that time.
And then the other one I put on there was Brewers 2018. That one, I only have an honorable mention because after that game, I wasn't as despondent, even though it was Game 7 compared to Game 6 in 2011. Because my first thinking was like, they can do that. They can get back here.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I guess they haven't got to that level, but they have been more consistently a contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to get, because you're right. 2011 there was a finality to
and
it.
they didn't get back there for 7 years. So,
and I think why I didn't have 2011 on my top 5 was like because it was Game 6, and it was
right.
I remember going into Game 6. I'm like, it's Sean Markham though, and Sean Markham you could tell he had nothing left.
He was like gas.
And I'm like, oh crap, I wasn't feeling good about it. But I will say, after that Game 5 against the Diamondbacks, we were in the parking lot afterwards just celebrating. And I remember looking at my phone. I'm like, Philly lost. We have home field. We got this.
Yep. I remember thinking the same thing. Like, oh, the Cardinals, yes.
Yep. Because that's when they just like won like how many in a row just to get in.
Right.
Yeah. Momentum carried them. So, oh yeah, there's quite a few. Trying to think of when somebody had mentioned Bucks Raptors one. That one.
That's a good sneaky one.
Yeah. I'm assuming the Game 7.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yep. I can't put my Magic in there from '95 because they
got obliterated.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about putting in like maybe one of the Rose Bowls for the Badgers, like either the one they lost to TCU or the one to Oregon. That was a shootout. I mean, they've lost many of them. Heck, I was even at the one where they lost Oregon in 2020, and that didn't make the list. Like that wasn't necessarily heartbreaking, but like,
what about like the Kirk Cousins Hail Mary when he was with Michigan State?
That wouldn't be a bad. I don't know if that would ever make out, but that one.
Yeah.
I remember being in the office for that, and that sucked.
Yeah.
And then they did it again. the Ohio State did it again a few weeks later. Like,
yeah.
In hindsight, that might have even hurt more than the actual Rose Bowl because, like, at that point, the Badgers were like a legit national title contender.
Yeah.
And that's what kept them from it.
All right. Well, I guess
we wallowed in our own self-pity enough.
Yeah. I guess we got to make some picks.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We'll take a quick break. And, yeah, if it wants me to. Quick break, and we'll wrap things up here. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Wrapping things up on this Heartbreak Friday. Got to move on eventually, right? Well, it'll take a little bit. Give us the weekend here.
Congratulations on reaching the World Series, Mets. I'm not saying that as in like, oh, that was your World Series win. No, I'm saying literally every team that's ever beaten the Brewers in the playoffs has at least reached the World Series. So
we had a few people text that in here too. So
if you haven't bet big on the Mets yet,
start hammering it. Start hammering it hard. Do you want to do baseball ones before we get to football picks over here? Because divisional series does start tomorrow. If the Brewers would have won, they would have played tomorrow.
They would have tomorrow afternoon.
Yep, right away. So let's first, then I'm going to ask you for your World Series picks, okay? Because I did mine, but and I'll revisit it here. But we'll might as well get yours too here. So and I know we're through the wild card round, but it is what it is. Let's go Detroit at Cleveland.
Man, Detroit's hot, but I'm going to take Cleveland.
Now, I'm going to go Cleveland in this one, too. Mets, Philly.
I'm going to take Philly.
I'm going to take Philly a little kind of, I don't want to say, Mets going to, obviously pumped from last night and that maybe a little bit of a drain out game coming over here. So, Royals, Yankees.
I'm going to take the Yankees.
Kind of weird to say that Garrett Cole, and I'm a little nervous about Garrett Cole out there, but I'll go Yankees with this one. Is this the best series? Padres and Dodgers?
Could be. I'm taking Padres.
I was actually going to go Padres in this one too.
I like the way the Padres are playing right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, your World Series picks.
My World Series is Padres Yankees.
I went straight up boring Dodgers Yankees.
Boy, but Fox will love you for that.
Well, part of me, so my heart was I wanted the Euchre series, Milwaukee and Cleveland. If you're just a general base fan, to have Judge and Ohtani in a World Series would be kind of,
it would be,
that sort of thing. So it'd be better if Ohtani would pitch against him. That would be something there. So, do you want to do? So those were just Saturday games. You want to do Sundays?
Yeah.
Games
I thought that was just the series.
Oh, you want to do a series?
I thought we were just picking the whole series.
Oh, well, series. I'm going Cleveland, Philly, Yankees, and Dodgers.
Okay, yeah. Well, what I picked there was my picks for the series.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, they could all win game one, but
that makes sense. I got you. All right, let's do some. Let's do college football first before we get to the
National
Football League. Did you see this graphic yesterday? 56 straight days. There's a football game on between college football and pro.
Yep.
How is that possible?
Well, once you start
getting, so we got a Tuesday game.
There'll be. I think we get some action, but I thought action came up in like November.
Because I was like, I could look at it, but I didn't really want to look it up. But apparently, there's 56 straight days of college or pro football. So we know Monday, Thursday, Sundays, NFL, and that. So tonight we've got Michigan State at Oregon. So it's Oregon.
I mean,
Oregon's gonna win that one. So let's go number 9 Missouri at number 25 Texas A&M. Texas A&M is actually favored in this game.
I'll take Texas A&M.
I'll go Missouri. I'll go with the Tigers. Let's do Iowa at Ohio State. Ohio State's favored by 18.5 over or under. I'm assuming we're all picking Ohio State. So
I'm gonna say Ohio State covers.
I'm gonna say Ohio State.
I think that Iowa's defense keeps them around for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think second half Ohio State wins by like 20, maybe like a 40-20 game.
Mm-hmm. Indiana's in the top 25. They're visiting Northwestern, favored by 14. Do they cover?
Yes,
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Mr. Signetti.
Yeah. Let's go. But there's not a lot of ranked teams here.
There's not
this week here. So let's do Michigan at Washington. So here's interesting. Michigan's ranked number 10. Washington's favored though by 1.5.
Michigan.
I'm gonna go Michigan too. USC at Minnesota. USC's favored by 8.5.
I will take USC.
USC, and I think they cover.
Yep.
Wisconsin, Purdue. The line 13.5 for Wisconsin. Do they win and do they cover?
I'm going to say they win, but they don't cover.
Same. New offensive coordinator for Purdue. No Graham Harrell.
Yep.
No Ches Malusi now, which...
No, Pete stepped away.
He hasn't left the program. He's stepped away to still recover from his injuries, which, I mean, dude's going to be playing in his 8th year almost, it feels like, coming up here. So
I'm going to say they find a way to manufacture like a 28-20 win.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I'm going to say 20-13. I'm going to move those points down a little bit. I'm going to say 20-13 Badgers.
I'm gonna go 23-17 Badgers. Let's do some pro picks here. A good game last night. Went to overtime.
Yeah.
If anybody else decided to watch football instead of baseball last night, but I got the pick wrong.
All right.
I changed it.
October.
I did this again. So on Monday, I told myself, don't do this. And I did it. I originally had the Titans, but I fell into the Snoop Huntley love affair. Like, okay, Pro Bowl, Mike McDaniel going to get this. Nope. And I switched it to Miami, and I got screwed, and I lost my top spot. And I did it again last night with the game. I was like, it's going to be Atlanta at home. Nope. Buccaneers are playing really good. And I screwed it up again. When am I going to learn? Just go with your gut away.
Don't tinker.
Don't tinker with the picks when they're done. So, yeah, now I'm falling off the cliff here, Brandon.
You're losing it.
It's grinding my gears again.
And it's not even Tuesday.
It's not even Tuesday. So I'm trying to get the list up so we can go into order of our picks. Do you have
I've got
it?
them.
Okay, go for it.
We'll start with the first game. Jets Vikings in England. I'm going to take the Vikings.
Good. Hopefully you cursed it. I need the Jets to win. That's why I'm going with it. A lot of drama going around with the Jets with Garrett Wilson and such. I think.
What's the cadence like for the Jets?
Oh my God, it's going to blow up.
Aren't you just glad you don't have to worry about it?
Yes, I will say this: if the Jets lose, the whole thing gets blown up. They need to win this one, otherwise everything's going to go downhill.
And I don't ask for much. And as a Vikings fan, I don't often get much. But let the Vikings be the team that causes that thing to blow up. Just give me that. Give me that.
No. Got to make it close yet.
All right. Panthers at Bears.
Bears.
Although
Andy Dalton's playing really well.
Hey, look, Andy, Andy Dalton's he's going to make the throws the coach wants you to make.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go Bears at home.
So do you think what the Panthers saying, does that say more about Bryce Young, or does that say more about just the system and the quarterback is not a match?
I think it could be system.
Yeah. I want to see Bryce Young with a coach. And I think that, obviously they hired Dave because, thinking that he could.
It's because of what he did with last year in Tampa.
Yep. So, but I hope Bryce Young gets another chance.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going Bears.
Ravens, Bengals.
A good one. I'll go with the Ravens, though.
I'll go Ravens, yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
Bills, Texans. Stephon Diggs, revenge game. It's his second one so far this year.
I'm going to go Bills.
I will go Bills as well. Colts at Jaguars.
I got the Jaguars.
I'm taking Jaguars, too.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins at Patriots.
Come on, Dolphins. I'm going to go victory there. You got to open up the playbook for Huntley.
I'm going to go Patriots.
All right.
Browns, Commanders.
Got to kind of feel good about feel happy for Commanders fans right now. Jane Daniels is playing.
They deserve to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm going to take
Commanders.
Washington.
Yep.
Raiders, Broncos.
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 Too much drama now with the Raiders.
Cardinals, 49ers.
I'll go 49ers, even though the Cardinals are a little bit better than I thought they would be this year.
I'll go 49ers. Giants, Seahawks.
Giants got to go all that way. Seattle's coming off a loss. I'm going Seattle.
Seattle, yep. Seattle, I don't think played particularly bad against.
No, they put up a bunch of yards. Yeah.
Cowboys, Steelers. Will Neil O'Donnell get in the game?
Will Larry Brown have a pick?
Will he make his career off that game?
And then will he sign with the Raiders afterwards? Because that's what the Raiders would sign Super Bowl MVPs after that.
Every year, yep.
Dallas.
I'm taking Dallas. Saints, Chiefs.
Sneaky kind of maybe good one there a little bit, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
Same. And last but not least, Packers, Rams.
There is absolutely no reason why Green Bay should lose this other than the Rams are desperate and they find that extra gear. No Puka, no Cooper. They are the second worst. No, they are the worst rushing defense in the league. Green Bay has no reason to lose this. They win.
I'm taking Green Bay too.
Yeah.
I kind of mentioned it to you after the game last week. I don't think they're very far off offensively.
Mm-hmm.
There were some drops. There were some missed throws. Like I think it.
How much you factored Jordan's first game with the knee brace and all that?
Especially that first half. I told you I thought it was Murphy's Law game, where if it could go wrong for him, it did. Not John Murphy's Law, but no, I think this is the game where it clicks for the offense. So I will take the Packers, and I will take the Packers by 2 scores.
Yeah, like the only way I see Green Bay losing this is I know the Rams are desperate, and they're desperate for a win.
And they do have a good coach.
They do. Or if Green Bay shoots themselves in the foot. If they get down early by a couple, then I get a little nervous because then you're not able to run the football. Dead last, the Rams defense is dead last in stopping the run. You got unleash Josh Jacobs in this game. So, and the thing is too, Stafford, you look at his numbers, he's top 8 in passing yards, but he's only thrown 2 touchdowns, and he's only got 2 picks though too. But that's what happens when you don't have Puka and Cooper over there. So go after him. I want to see Rashawn Gary get a couple sacks in this one. We need it.
I don't.
I do. Because after Sunday, Green Bay will be 3-2, and your Vikings will have their first loss of the season.
You don't know that.
I do know.
You don't know that.
I'm a Jets fan for Sunday morning football. Don't disappoint us, Aaron. You owe us. You owe your Packers brethren for a win again in London against the Vikings. Sam Darnold revenge game. You didn't mention that.
Sam Darnold revenge game.
Sam Darnold, man.
The
prediction.
September NFC Offensive Player of the Month, as we all saw coming.
Also, by the way, picks and predicts brought to you by our good friends at the Elbow Room.
Watch the games there.
Watch the games there. Brandon's yelling at you to watch the games over there. Yes, go watch, whether it's baseball, some football, college football, pro football, located right next to the Banbury Place. The Elbow Room in Eau Claire, also partners of the Mobile Man Cave. One more prediction from you. Devontae Adams plays where by the end of the season?
Man. Dallas.
That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious.
Because obviously Jets is the odds-on favorite. I'm like, but if I think the Vikings beat the Jets, are they going on Sunday, are they going to do it?
Everybody obviously is picking Jets. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the one. The team I want him to go to that I think would be a lot of fun is the Commanders. Yeah. And he was praising Jane Daniels earlier. I think a sneaky team that should at least inquire should be the Chargers and pair him up with Justin Herbert because they got rid of all their wideouts. And he gets to stay on the West Coast.
That was not the NFC West team or AFC West team I was thinking you were going to say.
No. And that's the other part. Would they trade him within a division? I
think if it's the best deal, you do it.
Exactly. I think you have, especially if it's like the Chiefs.
They're not close. Like the Raiders aren't close.
If the Chiefs offer you more than anybody else, take it.
Take it.
Take it.
Yeah.
Buffalo is in there. I'll stay with Buffalo as my prediction. But I want the Commander. I think that would be kind of fun. Him with Jane Daniels over there. That'd be interesting. So it's going to be the Jets, though, probably, too.
Probably.
It'll be an AFC East team. Have a good weekend, everybody. DP, Danitz are up next. We'll be back Monday morning.